Chapter 1100. Chuli replied, I killed him. You. Elder Du pointed at him, as his baby-like face turned even redder. Do you know what you're doing? Chuli scoffed. That guy deserves to die. He deserves to die. Do you know that he's the son of an enlightened master? How can an enlightened master not do anything when his son is dead? Elder Du yelled. Are you crazy? How dare you provoke an enlightened master? Chuli grinned. Honorable Master Du, I'm fine now, aren't I? You're fine because the heavenly demon statue stopped him. Elder Li said coldly, but can you stay in heavenly demonic sect forever? It's fine even if I go out. He doesn't know me anyway. Chuli laughed. Elder Du said impatiently, aren't you smart? Why don't you think about how he found this place? Chuli frowned. Maybe I have something that he can track down, something like the soul-chasing incense. An enlightened master's tricks are unpredictable. Catching you is a piece of cake. You'll definitely die. Fu Qingya said, if you want to live, stay in heavenly demonic sect and leave after a year. Chuli laughed. An enlightened master is indeed powerful, but our heavenly demon statue is even more powerful. What's so special about it? The heavenly demon statue's special isn't something you can understand, Fu Qingya said. Fu Qingya said, but you can't fathom how powerful an enlightened master is, so you should just hide in the sect. Chuli asked, didn't he get chased away? He only retreated temporarily. He doesn't dare to enter heavenly demonic sect, but he might be waiting for you outside. Once he leaves, he'll definitely kill you. He must avenge his son. Fu Qingya shook his head. You're really reckless. You think that you're so powerful that you don't know your limits. Chuli chuckled. Leave, Fu Qingya said impatiently. I'll send you the heavenly demonic stone later. Li fist saluted and left. After he left, Elder Bai sighed. This young man is getting more and more troublesome. He had mixed feelings. Provoking an enlightened master required a certain level of confidence, and being able to escape from an enlightened master was something to be proud of. Fortunately, we have the sky demon statue. The other three elders shook their heads and smiled bitterly. Fu Qingya said, I'll be guarding the basilica for a while to prevent the enlightened masters from returning. You'll come again? Fu Qingya replied, he's probably injured, so he won't be fighting again for the time being. That's good. The four elders heaved a sigh of relief. The activation of the heavenly demon statue was not that easy. Every time it was used, it would take 2 days for it to recover. If the heavenly god came again, they might not be able to hold on. This is very troublesome. Fu Qingya frowned. This bastard brat, he's finally in big trouble. Elder Bai snorted. Fu Qingya said, it's too late to say anything now. Chapter 1101. While they were talking, a figure flashed by, and Chuli appeared in front of them. He greeted them with a smile and sat in front of them. His gaze swept over them. The two women were both dressed in spotless white robes. Their beautiful faces were glistening with a warm luster under the light, like 2 pieces of white jade. One of their eyes was as clear as a spring, while the other was as deep as a lake. They say that bad people will cause trouble for 1,000 years. Xiao Shi pursed her lips and smiled. You're full of evil tricks. You won't die so easily. Chuli shook his head and laughed. Xiao Qi said, the emperor has issued a reward and wants the whole world to search for him. Are you going to disguise yourself as Du Feng? Chuli nodded. Xiao Shi was confused. Why must I disguise myself as Du Feng? Wouldn't it be better to just cover my face? Or I could just disguise myself as a stranger. It's more interesting this way, Chuli said. Xiao Qi frowned and glared at him. What about Snow Lunar Pavilion? If the emperor takes his anger out on Snow Lunar Pavilion, it'll be a disaster. Chuli laughed. Don't worry, it's not that serious. I've already revealed my identity as a disciple of heavenly demonic sect. The emperor knows that. He chased after me, but was defeated by heavenly demonic sect. What if he takes his anger out on me? Shao-Chi scoffed. Shao-Shur said, What are you up to this time? Chuli smiled without saying a word. Shao-Chi took a deep breath. Her chest rose and fell violently, attracting Chuli's attention. Shao-Shur chuckled. Are you two going to fight? Chuli shook his head, helplessly. He did not want to say much, but they wanted to know. He had to say it eventually, so he answered, Don't worry. No matter how angry the emperor is, he won't take his anger out on Snow Lunar Pavilion. I've already diverted his attention to heavenly demonic sect. He won't. There's another reason, right? Shao-Chi scoffed. Chuli said, Do you know that Senior Shen has a lover? Shao-Chi frowned at him and nodded slowly. Shen Yinghu, who was both his aunt and master, had always been depressed. She was obviously sad. She did not know who Shen Yinghu's lover was. No one in Snow Lunar Pavilion mentioned this person. It was as if they were afraid of making Shen Yinghu sad, so no one mentioned it. Her mind had always been focused on the regal sword scripture, so she didn't pay much attention to it. She didn't dare to mention it in front of Shen Yinghu to prevent her from being even sadder. Shao-Shur asked, Chuli, you know about it? I have a guess, and it's not far from the truth, Chuli said. Shao-Shur was surprised. Could it be the emperor? Shao-Chi frowned and shook her head. No. Chuli chuckled. Why not? When His Majesty was young, he must have been very handsome and attractive to women. When he roamed the Wuling world, his martial arts were also very strong. Is it strange that Elder Shen is attracted to him? Shen Yinghu once said that the man she loved was dead. Chuli initially thought it was true, but after a few interactions, he found out the truth. Women are the best liars. Sometimes they even deceive themselves. Impossible. Shao-Chi shook her head. Shao-Shur said, Little sister, it's not impossible. Chuli grinned and said, It's not appropriate for us to discuss the private affairs of our elders. Shao-Chi frowned at him and scoffed. Are you sure? Chuli smiled and nodded. Shao-Shur chuckled. That's interesting. No wonder she's always in a daze and often looks towards the direction of the imperial house. The next time we enter the imperial house, I'll bring Elder Shen there, and we'll know. Chuli smiled. Don't mess around. Shao-Chi hurriedly said. No one knew what would happen if things got out of hand, given Little Ant's temper. Chuli, you're really bad. Shao-Shur pointed at him. Chuli said, But this isn't over. We need to hurry back to the fairy's capital. King En's imperial residence needs to be stabilized. Second Lady, you should hurry back. Okay. Shao-Shur stretched her body, revealing her graceful curves. She smiled. Without King En, it feels like King En's imperial residence has become my home. It's completely different. Chuli said, From now on, it will be Second Lady's home. Sigh. It's a little boring for him to die, just like that. Shao-Shur shook her head. We can torture him slowly. Chuli shook his head. A long night is fraught with dreams. All right, I'll leave tomorrow. You should hurry back too. Shao-Shur said. Chuli nodded. Shao-Shur glanced at the two of them with a faint smile. She shook her head and left. Shao-Chi blushed under her stare. Chuli chuckled. He grabbed her waist and disappeared in a flash. They returned to her bedroom. Chuli and Shao-Chi rode their horses and traveled along the official road. After leaving adjacent town, they traveled for more than 100 miles. In the evening, the two of them entered a big city. The city was bustling with activity, and traffic was endless. The two of them led their horses to an inn. Then they found a restaurant and found a seat by the window. They looked at the scenery outside through the window, and the noise of the city hit them in the face. The lanterns were already lit. They sat on the third floor. There were many customers on the third floor. It was very lively. Li took a sip of the fine wine and sighed comfortably. Now, he was crippled of his martial arts. His heavenly demonic power was completely covered by the life and death scripture. It was as if he had lost his heavenly demonic power. There was no trace of the heavenly demonic power on him. He looked like an ordinary person. Sigh, this is so frustrating. Someone put down his glass and sighed loudly. Tell me, Du Feng in the south and Li in the north. I heard that Li has been forced by the emperor to guard the imperial mausoleum. Chapter 11:02. Li frowned and shook his head. Since when did the secret guardians' hall become like this? How could they arrest someone just because of a few words? They must be crazy. Did Gu Yu turn the secret guardians' hall into this after he took over? Xiao Qi sneered. The two middle-aged men in black heard Xiao Qi sneer and turned to look at her with unfriendly eyes. They looked at Xiao Qi's face. Xiao Qi temporarily took off her white veil because she was eating, revealing her beautiful face. Coupled with her cold temperament, she was like an otherworldly fairy. She was so radiant that most people would look away as soon as they saw her. They did not dare to look at her anymore, as if looking at her any longer would be blasphemy. The two middle-aged men in black looked at her face impudently and finally said coldly, "Lady, do you have any objections?" Xiao Qi said, "The secret guardians' hall is too overbearing. I only complained a few words. Why did you have to arrest someone? The secret guardians' hall doesn't need to explain to others when we arrest people. We arrest them whenever we want." One of the middle-aged men in black said, "I think you're in cahoots with that guy, right?" Xiao Qi squinted her bright eyes and said, "Oh, then come with us." The other middle-aged man in black was as burly as a bear. He stared at Xiao Qi with greedy eyes. Both of them did not look at Li because he was looking at the scenery outside and did not turn around. Moreover, he did not have any aura on him. It was obvious that he did not practice martial arts, so he did not attract their attention. Xiao Qi said, "What if I don't go?" "That's not up to you, lady." The other thin, middle-aged man in black smiled and shook his head. "There's no one in the secret guardians' hall that can't be invited. Lady, do you want us to invite you by force? If we fight, even if you can escape, we'll issue a wanted notice. I'm sure you won't be able to go far." Xiao Qi said, "Has the secret guardians' hall always been this overbearing?" "Of course." The two of them said proudly. Li turned his head and glanced at them. "Since when did the secret guardians' hall become like this? Are you new to the secret guardians' hall?" He had seen almost all the protectors in the secret guardians' hall, but he did not see the two of them. The two of them glanced at Li and rolled their eyes. "How arrogant! Are you a secret guardian too?" Li took out a token and tossed it over. The two of them took a look, and their expressions changed. They recognized that this was the token of a centurion. Even if the centurion was not their direct superior, he still had the authority to mobilize their help. If they disobeyed, they would definitely suffer. Centurion Chu, the burly middle-aged protector, frowned. Could it be Centurion Chu? Li nodded. "I am Li. So it's Centurion Chu?" The two secret guardians looked at each other, and their smiles widened. Everyone tactfully stopped bothering him, but they looked at him with pity. The world's top young expert was now a cripple, and he was humiliated by the people he used to order around. In such a situation, he was still able to laugh. It could be said that he had extraordinary courage. Unfortunately, no matter how much courage he had, it was useless without martial arts. The secret guardian's hall was used to being tyrannical, so they would definitely not tolerate a secret guardian being crippled. Even if he still had his Centaurian position, it would be useless. However, there were also people who said that when he left Fairy's capital back then, the Emperor had stripped him of his Centaurian position. It seemed that the rumor was true. Otherwise, the secret guardians of the secret guardians hall would not be like this, right? Chu Li knew what they were thinking, but he was too lazy to care. Nonetheless, he knew that the secret guardians hall would not let it go so easily. This new deputy commander Gu did not want him to return to Fairy's capital. Guyu was not a broad-minded person, so he might not think highly of Chu Li. He only wanted to vent his anger. So he asked the secret guardians to cause trouble and even secretly trip him up. If there were no accidents, Chu Li and Xiao Qi's whereabouts would soon be known by the world. Xiao Qi said, "Now that our whereabouts have been exposed, I'm afraid we won't have peaceful days." Chu Li smiled. "Your regal sword scripture has improved greatly. Don't you want to use it?" "That's true." Xiao Qi nodded. She realized that after going through thick and thin with Chu Li, not only did her regal sword scripture not get crippled, but it also became more refined. She did not know how her state of mind was, but her cultivation level had improved by leaps and bounds. It was twice as good as before. She found it hard to believe that it could improve so much. She was also a little tempted to try her sword. Chu Li said, "Go ahead and kill." "All right." Xiao Qi nodded. "You have other intentions, don't you?" She was the most familiar with Chu Li, so she knew his habits. He always did things with a purpose, so it was normal for him to kill two birds with one stone. Chu Li said, "I'm just clearing my suspicion." The Ji dynasty's emperor, Lung Wufeng, would definitely think that Chu Li's disguise as Du Feng was heavily injured. Chu Li's unscathed appearance had more or less eliminated Lung Wufeng's suspicions. If Lung Wufeng suspected him, he would probably attack without any evidence. If Chu Li killed his way here, Lung Wufeng would not think about anything else and would not suspect him. The two left the big city the next day and continued to travel along the main road. In the evening, they missed their lodging, so they made a bonfire in the forest and ate their rations while they warmed themselves. It was early winter, so the forest was chilly. Chu Li had completely lost his martial arts. Chapter 1104. P.S. Update complete. Her reputation spread faster than they could travel. It was as if she had spread her name before them. It was strange and unpredictable. As Xiao Qi killed her way through, more than 50 martial arts masters were killed by her sword. Chu Li had offended too many people in the martial arts world, especially with Xiao Qi around. The public house was so powerful that many martial arts masters could not even breathe. Now that they had the chance to kill Chu Li and Xiao Qi, they could not wait. They either contacted others or fought alone. Xiao Qi did not stay idle as she had a new opponent every day. In the beginning, Xiao Qi was lenient and did not cripple their martial arts. Chu Li gave her some advice, and she realized that she could not kill them all. If she continued to be lenient, it would only make more people come out. Hence, she became ruthless and crippled their martial arts or broke their limbs. She was merciless. She wielded a treasure sword, and her sword was extremely fast. With the help of Chu Li's god's limbs, she was invincible and did not meet any opponents. When there were people with stronger inner energy than Xiao Qi, Chu Li secretly channeled his inner energy to help her. When there were people with high swordsmanship and fast speed, Chu Li used God's limbs to move Xiao Qi. Their combined attack was extremely powerful. In the evening, a mile away from the southern gate of Fairy's capital. A group of strong protectors occupied one side of the road. Bystanders could not get close to the parting pavilion. In the parting pavilion, the evening breeze was gentle. Prince Bao and Prince Kong were sitting by the stone table and sipping the tea brought by the scribes. About 100 guards surrounded the gazebo. Not even a fly could get in. They looked around like tigers watching their prey, and were always on guard. If King An could be slaughtered, who else could not die? Recently, the imperial family was worried, so the protectors were much tighter. The two sipped their tea and chatted. I wonder how young Chu is doing now. It's not a good feeling to have his martial arts crippled. I don't think so. After all, he has a beauty in his arms. Ha ha. Prince Bao shook his head. It's a blessing in disguise. He married Third Lady Xiao. Young Chu is really blessed. This third Miss Xiao is not a pushover either. I heard that she killed her way here and earned the title of White Sword Fairy. Prince Kong shook his head and smiled. I didn't expect Third Miss Xiao's martial arts to be so powerful. Third Lady Xiao, Prince Bao sighed. She is indeed a rare and extraordinary woman. Only such an extraordinary woman is worthy of little Chu. That's true, Prince Kong said with a smile. It wasn't easy to transfer little Chu back this time. I just don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. He was worried about Chu Li's situation. Madame Xiao will follow him. The two black-clothed Imperial House protectors saluted and smiled. Chief Chu Li, follow us into the palace. It's best if you leave immediately. The Emperor is waiting for you. Chu Li slowly replied. All right, sirs, please wait for a moment. Let me change my clothes. It's best if you hurry up. We can't let the Emperor wait for too long. The two Imperial House protectors nodded. Xiao Qi was pacing in Chu Li's courtyard. She was anxious when she heard the Imperial edict. When she saw Chu Li enter, she quickly went to greet him. Chu Li shook his head. You don't have to say anything. Xiao Qi frowned. Is the Emperor suspicious of you? Chu Li smiled. I don't think so. Xiao Qi sighed in relief. I'm just worried that he might sense something. You have to be careful. She did not know how powerful an enlightened master was, but she knew that they must be unfathomable. She did not know what they were capable of. Chu Li nodded. Just pretend that you don't know anything. Xiao Qi pursed her lips and nodded. The two of them changed into new clothes and followed the Imperial House protectors into the Imperial House. Xiao Qi followed a chamberlain to the Empress, while Chu Li followed another chamberlain to Chongwen Hall. Chongwen Hall was brightly lit. The imperial desk was filled with memorials to the throne. Lung Wufeng, who was dressed in a bright yellow robe, was sitting on the throne. His face was pale as he read the memorials with a gloomy expression. He frowned from time to time and looked impatient. Then he threw the memorials to the side as he was so angry that he did not want to read them anymore. After a long time, he picked up the memorial again and read it. He wrote a few words with the red brush and threw it to the side with resentment. Your Majesty, Chu Li is here. An old chamberlain with a white beard and eyebrows entered Chongwen Hall and reported. Oh, Lung Wufeng pushed the memorials away and looked interested. Let him in. Yes. The old chamberlain quickly brought Chu Li into the hall. Chu Li gave a fist salute as soon as he entered the hall. Greetings, Your Majesty. Lung Wufeng did not have the imposing manner of an enlightened master at all. Instead, he looked like an old man who did not know martial arts. However, his eyes were bright, and he looked dignified. It was an enlightened master who was deliberately restraining himself. Lung Wufeng sized Chu Li up and nodded in satisfaction. Indeed, your martial arts have been crippled. You're really foolish. Chu Li smiled without saying a word. He wanted to run away as the warning signs in his heart kept reminding him to stay away. However, Chu Li's expression did not change at all. Lung Wufeng said, "King An's imperial residence is now tied to you. What should you do? Have you not recovered your martial arts after such a long time?" Chapter 1106. Lung Wufeng stared at him with a frown. Chu Li sneered blankly. "King An is so muddle-headed. He's nothing to worry about. Why would I go and kill him? I'm not that stupid to exchange my life for his." "You really didn't kill him," said Lung Wufeng. Chu Li sneered without saying a word. Lung Wufeng withdrew his aura. As soon as Chu Li's body relaxed, he started sweating profusely. In the blink of an eye, his white robe was drenched. Previously, he had been forced to the point where he couldn't even sweat. Now that the pressure had receded, sweat rushed out of his body. It was as if he had just been fished out of water. Chu Li regained his clarity and frowned at Lung Wufeng. Lung Wufeng crossed his arms and looked at Ouyang Ming. "Looks like you're displeased with me." Chu Li scoffed. "I wouldn't dare." He knew that he shouldn't pretend to be too submissive, because being submissive would only lead to greater dissatisfaction, and being straightforward would instead be more believable. Lung Wufeng could not help but laugh. "You're young and full of vigor, just like me when I was young. What a great time." "Forget it. Since King An is dead, the imperial residence of King An will not have an easy time in the future. A man is the backbone of a family." Chu Li said, "King An is dead, and I'm in such a state. Has King An's imperial residence become a pushover in the eyes of others? I'm just afraid that the other royal highnesses will take the opportunity to bully us. I believe the emperor will stand up for King An's imperial residence. I won't participate in these matters." Lung Wufeng said, "I'll warn them not to provoke King An's imperial residence." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Chu Li fist saluted. Lung Wufeng remarked, "It's rare for you to be so loyal." Chu Li shook his head and remained silent. Lung Wufeng pondered and said, "King An's imperial residence needs someone to support it now. I heard that Shao Qi's martial art is amazing, and she's known as the White Sword Fairy." Chu Li replied, "Yes." Lung Wufeng smiled. "With her help, I'm sure you'll be able to support the imperial residence." Chu Li gave a fist salute. "The emperor should have some spirit pills like the reversal pill that can help me recover my martial arts quickly, right?" "Why? Do you want to recover your martial arts?" Lung Wufeng frowned. Chu Li smiled. "This kind of spirit pill might be precious to others, but it's nothing to the emperor, right? Even King An could get his hands on it back then. You're quite shameless." Lung Wufeng was surprised. He had never seen anyone ask for benefits from him face to face. Chu Li sure had guts. Chu Li said, "I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing this for the imperial residence. If I can recover my martial arts, I'm sure I can intimidate those who harbor ill intentions towards the imperial residence." Lung Wufeng pondered. After a moment, he slowly shook his head. "I don't have such a spirit pill, either." Chu Li was in disbelief. If King An could get his hands on it, and the Holy Church of Light also had the miracle cure pill, no one would believe that the dignified emperor of the Ji dynasty did not have such a spirit medicine. Lung Wufeng said, "But you don't have to rush to recover your martial arts. Take your time. Nothing will happen to King An's imperial residence in Fairy's capital." Chu Li frowned and looked at him. He nodded and said, "If that's the case, I should resign from my position as the Centurion of the Secret Guardians Hall. I don't have any martial arts skills, so I really don't have the ability to work in the Secret Guardians Hall. Moreover, the imperial residence is busy, so I don't have the energy." "Sure," Lung Wufeng responded. Chu Li fist saluted. "I'll take my leave then." As a rank one, he should be calling himself a subject, but he had always been resistant and did not want to be called a subject. Lung Wufeng waved his hand. Chu Li exited Chongwen Hall. A servant stood outside and led him out of the imperial house to the Vermilion Gate. The imperial house was brightly lit, but Chu Li felt cold and desolate. He sighed. It was lonely at the top, and being the emperor might not be comfortable. Instead, he had to bear great pressure as a loner. The emperor, Lung Wufeng's attitude was rather strange. He did not seem to like Chu Li. Perhaps it was an instinctive hatred. Even if the emperor did not know that Chu Li was the enemy who killed his son, he could still sense it. Moreover, Chu Li was also hostile toward Lung Wufeng, so Lung Wufeng should have sensed it too. The two of them could not see eye to eye. He waited outside the imperial house for a while before Shao Qi fluttered out. She wore a snow-white gown, and her face was as white as jade. Chu Li walked out side by side with her. "Why did the emperor summon you?" Shao Qi could not help but ask. The empress asked about the imperial mausoleum, but it seems like she didn't suspect anything. Chu Li shook his head. He's a paranoid person, so he must have some doubts. Fortunately, I managed to fool him. If it were not for the heavenly demon statue, which strengthened his soul, he might not have been able to resist Lung Wufeng's enlightened master's power. His willpower might have weakened, and he might have confessed everything. Now that he thought about it, it was a close call. Shao Qi asked, "Did you really fool him?" Chu Li nodded. "But he doesn't like me either. I've lost the emperor's favor, so I won't be able to get any help from him in the future." King An's imperial residence. Shao Qi frowned. She understood what Chu Li meant. Life in King An's imperial residence would not be easy. Chu Li said, "It's okay. It's the imperial residence after all." Shao Qi nodded. The two of them returned to King An's imperial residence. When they arrived at Tianshu courtyard, Shao Shi was waiting anxiously. Chapter 1107. Chu Li looked at the two and said, "You're here on Commander Gu's orders to pick a fight, right?" "We don't know what you mean, Chief Chu," the young secret guardian said, "but the secret guardians hall is not the old secret guardians hall. Please remember, Chief Chu, don't test the law, lest you make things difficult for us." Chu Li shook his head. "If there's nothing else, please leave. Chief Chu doesn't welcome us." The other round-faced young secret guardian smiled. "Are you feeling guilty? Is there something wrong?" Chu Li squinted his eyes and looked at the two. He knew that they were here to pick a fight today. They were determined to disgust him, or they would not be able to explain themselves when they returned. Moreover, they were very excited that they finally found a chance to step on him. They were envious and jealous of him. Now that they had such a chance, they must step on him. "You think that I'm crippled of my martial arts, so you can bully me as you please, right?" Chu Li said lightly. "That's right." The round-faced young secret guardian smiled and said, "Chief Chu, you should know that things are different now. You're no longer the mighty centurion Chu from before. You're just a useless person now, so don't be so arrogant and domineering anymore. Otherwise, the secret guardian's hall won't be polite. All right, let's see what you're capable of." Chu Li smiled. His figure flashed, and with two crisp sounds, the two young secret guardians were sent flying. Chu Li slapped each of them out of the hall. The two spun out of the hall and landed at the bottom of the stairs outside. They were in a sorry state. The two covered their faces in disbelief and stared at Chu Li. They knew that Chu Li's martial arts was crippled. He had an undeserved reputation, but he did not have his previous strength. Therefore, they were unscrupulous. It did not matter if they scolded Chu Li or even slapped him. He was not a secret guardian. Now, even the nobles and ministers could not control the secret guardians' hall. They could be arrogant in front of Chu Li. They expected Chu Li to make a move. This was also their goal. They wanted to provoke Chu Li to make a move and then take the opportunity to teach him a lesson. Then, they would report to the commander and be rewarded. As for Chu Li without martial arts, he was like a tiger without claws and teeth. He was not worth mentioning. Chu Li stood on the stairs and looked down at the two of them. He shook his head and said, "Is this what you want?" "Chu Li, how dare you?" The round-faced young man's face turned red as he scoffed angrily, "We are secret guardians." Chu Li smiled. "I'm going to beat you secret guardians. Idiots like you, even if I cripple your martial arts, I'll still take care of you all the same. Chu Li, just you wait. The secret guardians' hall will not let this go." Another young secret guardian raised his voice and shouted, "Our secret guardians' hall is not the same as before. We will never allow anyone to invade us." "Then I'll be waiting," Chu Li said faintly. "Now get lost." The two secret guardians got up and turned to leave. They actually did not see clearly how Li's slap came over. His movement was strangely fast, although he did not have internal energy, but he was still not their match. A wise man does not fight when the odds are against him. It's better to report this to the commander. Chu Li looked at their backs with a gloomy face and said in a low voice, "Chief Zhu." "Head chief." Chief Zhu hurried forward. Chu Li scoffed. "Tell everyone that if anyone from the secret guardians' hall comes again, just shut the door and don't let them in." "Yes." Chief Zhu hurriedly nodded, then immediately showed a troubled expression. "But if they force their way in, then just fight back," Chu Li said faintly. "Yes." Chief Zhu hurriedly nodded, showing an excited expression. Then he became slightly worried. "Head chief, I'm worried that our protectors might not be able to defeat the secret guardians' hall." "Then we'll have to wait and see," Chu Li said. "Yes." Chief Zhu finally did not say anything else and agreed. Chu Li put his hands behind his back and walked towards Tianshu courtyard. He was deep in thought as he walked. He had just returned to Fairy's capital, and there were already people who could not wait to jump out and humiliate him. This was really Guyu's style, an unscrupulous villain. It seemed that as long as his martial arts did not recover, trouble like this would always be there. Unfortunately, his martial arts was now crippled and could not recover immediately, or else it would arouse the emperor's suspicion. He needed to do something to show the emperor. When he arrived at Tianshu courtyard, Xiao Qi and Xiao Shi were both in the courtyard, playing chess by the stone table. When Chu Li came in, Xiao Shi glanced at him and said faintly, "Why do you look so pale? What's the matter?" Xiao Qi also frowned. "Did you teach the secret guardians a lesson?" Chu Li said, "I think there'll be more trouble. They're quite bold. Aren't they afraid that I'll kill them?" Xiao Shi scoffed. She held a black chess piece and gently placed it down. Chu Li shook his head. "Times are different now. Don't act rashly. I'll kill them and then go to the palace to complain to the empress. I'll say that they bullied us orphans and widows." Xiao Shi said faintly. Chu Li said, "They're looking for trouble with me now. Firstly, it's because of my grudge, and secondly, it's because of your grudge. Back then, you killed 2 secret guardians, causing secret guardians' hall's status to plummet. Now that Guyu wants to restore secret guardians' hall's dignity, he'll definitely seek revenge. This was the sin that was done before, and now it was time to pay back. This Guyu is really a piece of trash." Xiao Shi scoffed. Xiao Qi said, "He's now the secret guardians' hall's deputy commander, right?" Chu Li slowly nodded. "What about the commander?" Xiao Qi asked, "Are you going to let him do as he pleases?" "Commander Fu." Chu Li smiled. "The emperor's favor isn't as good as Guyu, so naturally he won't dare to go against Guyu. It might seem like he's the commander, but he still has to listen to Guyu. The secret guardians, Hall, has always been the emperor's lackey. That's troublesome. Xiao Qi frowned. Chuli said, Guyu isn't someone who'll make it. Don't worry about him. He understood Guyu very well. He had great ambitions but little talent. He thought that he could do something earth-shattering, but he was actually an idiot. He was arrogant, narrow-minded, and could not tolerate others disobeying him. He could conclude that the secret Guardians' Hall would only worsen under Guyu's leadership. The secret Guardians' Hall was unlucky to have such a person. Although Fu Mengshan was ruthless, he knew how to do things. He was also very talented, far better than Guyu. However, Guyu refused to accept it and wanted to win against Fu Qingshan. It was obvious that this time he was picking a fight with Chu Li, and it was also an opportunity for him to establish his authority. He took the opportunity to bully King En's imperial residence and to make an example out of the rest of the imperial residences and officials. At this moment, footsteps were heard. Chief Zhu said softly from outside, Head Chief, Commander Fu of the Secret Guardians Hall is outside, and he wants to see you. Commander Fu. Chu Li frowned and said in a deep voice, Please enter the main hall and serve tea. Yes, Chief Zhu responded and left briskly. Chu Li frowned and pondered. The omniscient mirror had already seen Fu Mengshan standing outside the imperial residence. 4 imperial residence protectors were staring at him. Chapter 1108. Chu Li shook his head helplessly. These 4 protectors looked fierce, but it showed that King En's imperial residence was strong on the outside but weak on the inside. It was time to replace them with gentle protectors. King En's death caused everyone to panic. Fu Mengshan came to see you? Xiao Shi frowned. He's a busy man. Why would he come here? Nothing good will come out of it. Chu Li said, Let's go take a look. Xiao Qi asked, Do you want me to go with you? Chu Li shook his head and smiled. He won't fight me. You guys go ahead, I'll go take a look. The 2 ladies watched him leave. Xiao Shi sighed. Thank goodness you're back. If I was alone, I wouldn't be able to handle it. There are so many things to do. I can't wait for everyone to come and ask me. I don't dare to make any decisions. King En's death has crushed their spirits. They're all useless. It's inevitable. Xiao Qi nodded and continued with the next move. Chu Li came to the main hall. Fu Mengshan stood up and smiled. He closed fist saluted. Chief Chu, congratulations. Chu Li closed fist saluted with a smile and sat opposite him. He looked at Fu Mengshan. Fu Mengshan did not look well. His eyes were bloodshot. It was obvious that he did not sleep well last night. He looked haggard and worried. Commander, what happened? Chu Li asked as he put down his teacup. Fu Mengshan glanced at the maid outside the main hall. Chu Li waved his hand. The maid left, and only the 2 of them were left in the main hall. Fu Mengshan sighed. I've been sent to the Imperial Mausoleum. I can accompany Commander Su now. Chu Li was stunned. How is that possible? I had a hunch when the Emperor sent Guyu here. Fu Mengshan shook his head and sighed. I had to give the place to Guyu. The Emperor will only be at ease if the secret Guardians Hall is in Guyu's hands. Chu Li frowned. Commander, you've worked hard for so many years. Even if you don't have any merits, you've worked hard. How can you enter the Imperial Mausoleum? Sigh. Fu Mengshan shook his head and smiled bitterly. This is the best outcome. I know too much that I shouldn't have. The Emperor is being merciful by not killing me. I knew this day would come, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. Chu Li frowned. Is there no chance? No. Fu Mengshan shook his head and said, The Emperor is naturally paranoid. He will never allow anyone to be the commander of the Secret Guardians Hall for too long, lest he becomes too powerful and loses control. Chuli nodded slowly. Then what's the reason this time? Because of King En's death. Fu Mengshan sighed and said, "We, the Secret Guardians, didn't receive any news at all, and King En was killed right away. The Emperor was furious and initially ordered the Secret Guardians Hall to capture Du Feng within 10 days. In the end, we couldn't fulfill our wish, so the Emperor took me into custody." Chuli sneered. As Chen Donghai dealt with Zhu Tianhua's attacks, he shouted, "Chief Chu, how dare you oppose and attack our Secret Guardians? Who knows if you guys are real or fake Secret Guardians?" Chuli said lazily, "Moreover, so what if you're a Secret Guardian? Is King En's imperial residence a place where Secret Guardians like you can enter as you please?" Xiao Shi rushed over and saw Chen Donghai and the others. Xiao Qi followed beside her. She frowned and asked, "What should we do with them?" "They're all crippled," Chu Li said lazily. Fu Mengshan was taken aback and hurriedly said, "Little Chu, you better think this through." Chu Li said, "Let's do it." "All right." Xiao Qi agreed. Her figure turned into a white shadow and shuttled through the crowd. Her sword flashed like lightning and cut through everyone's wrists. Then she pierced their dantian and crippled their cultivation. Chen Donghai could not believe that Chu Li dared to act so recklessly. Among the Secret Guardians that he brought, there were 4 Grandmasters, and the rest were top-notch perfected innate masters who were just a step away from attaining the Grandmaster's boundary. These were the elites of Mei Yi Courtyard, and they were protected by Secret Guardians. Yet they were no match for Xiao Qi. Chen Donghai never thought that such a day would come. Xiao Qi ignored Chen Donghai. Her sword flashed, and with each strike, a Secret Guardian was crippled. In the blink of an eye, the Secret Guardians were lying on the ground. 12 Secret Guardians were lying on the ground with their martial arts crippled. Chuli smiled. Zhu Tianhua saw that they were useless against Xiao Qi's martial arts, so he worked even harder and pressured Chen Donghai to the point where he could not breathe. Although Chen Donghai's martial arts were strong, he did not have much time to cultivate. Zhu Tianhua's talent was amazing, and coupled with his hard work, he improved greatly. At this moment, Chen Donghai was on the verge of collapsing and could be defeated at any time. Chen Donghai raised his voice and shouted, "Chuli, are you crazy? Do you know what you're doing?" Chuli replied, "I'm just crippling a few Secret Guardians." "How is this crazy?" You. Chen Donghai was in disbelief. The status of the Secret Guardians of the Secret Guardians Hall had always been aloof. They were a force that directly belonged to the Emperor. Even if there were people who opposed them, they would usually try to escape. There had never been anyone as daring as Chu Li, who actually wanted to cripple 12 Secret Guardians. Zhu Tianhua stepped down. Xiao Qi said. Zhu Tianhua quickly retreated. Xiao Qi appeared behind Chen Donghai in a flash, and her sword flashed. "How dare you?" Chen Donghai shouted, and his body suddenly expanded as he performed a secret skill. Xiao Qi's sword suddenly accelerated and stabbed Chen Donghai's dantian. There seemed to be a qi sound of air leaking. Chen Donghai seemed to have shrunk a little, and his face was pale as he stared at Chu Li in disbelief. He never thought that Chu Li would dare to do this and cripple him. According to his original expectations, Chu Li would be furious when he saw him, but would eventually be taken away by him and admit defeat. He never thought that Chu Li would be so violent that he would directly attack the Secret Guardians and cripple their martial arts one by one. Even Chen Donghai was not spared. Could it be that Chu Li was going to kill them all to silence them? Chen Donghai felt a chill when he thought of this. Chu Li was now in a crazy state, and it was not impossible for him to do such a thing. Chu Li approached him and smiled as he looked at him. Chen Donghai was terrified. Looking at Chu Li's smile, he felt that Chu Li was completely crazy. Chu Li sighed. I've been crippled of my martial arts, so I'm no longer a secret guardian. I wonder if all of you will still be secret guardians after becoming crippled. Centurion Chen, it looks like your position as a centurion has come to an end. Chu Li, you're really crazy. Do you know what you're doing? Chen Donghai still could not believe that Chu Li would dare to do this. Chu Li smiled. Centurion Chen, whether I'm crazy or not has nothing to do with you, right? Chen Donghai gritted his teeth. He wanted to swallow Chu Li whole. At first, he thought that it would be a good show where he could finally step on Chu Li's head and vent his anger. He never thought that Chu Li would be so crazy that he actually ordered the protectors of the imperial residence to attack and cripple everyone. Back then, it was already shocking that Xiao Shi killed 2 secret guardians. Now, Chu Li was even crazier than Xiao Shi. There were 13 secret guardians, including him, a centurion. Was Chu Li tired of living? Chu Li smiled. Someone throw Centurion Chen and the others out of the residence. Chu Li, I'll wait to see what happens to you. Chen Donghai gritted his teeth and glared at him with hatred. Chu Li waved his hand and gestured for everyone to move. Zhu Tianhua and the others obeyed. Chapter 11:10. Fu Mengshan smiled bitterly as he looked at Chu Li, then at Shao Qi. He sighed and said, "Is this the famous third Miss Shao?" Chu Li smiled. "Although my martial arts was crippled, my wife's was not, so I have nothing to be afraid of." Shao Qi gently nodded to hide her shyness. Fu Mengshan smiled bitterly. Sigh, Chu Li smiled. "Commander Fu, it's all right. Guyu won't forgive you." Fu Mengshan shook his head and smiled bitterly. He's a vengeful person. Ever since he became the deputy commander, he's focused on strengthening the authority of the secret guardians to restore their former prestige. Now that you've humiliated him, he'll definitely think of ways to kill you. Chu Li scoffed. We'll have to see what he's capable of. What will you do if he brings people to surround the imperial residence? Fu Mengshan frowned. Don't think that he won't do it. He's even more unscrupulous. Chu Li said, we'll have to see if the protectors of the imperial residence are stronger or the secret guardians. Do you want to start a war with the secret guardians? Why not? You're quite bold. Fu Mengshan shook his head. The emperor won't let you go to make an example out of you. Although he won't do anything to King En's imperial residence, it won't end well for you, young Chu. I don't care, Chu Li said. Fu Mengshan frowned. Actually, Guyu has gone too far in this matter. You're at fault too. Things have gotten out of hand. Chu Li smiled. Commander Fu, this is a troublesome place. You should leave first. Leave Fairy's capital as soon as possible, so that you won't be implicated. All right. Fu Mengshan nodded slowly. He sighed helplessly. He felt that he really did not understand this world. Chu Li's actions were so extreme and crazy. He really did not know how to end this. In the end, he would probably end up in prison. Chu Li sent Fu Mengshan off and returned to the main hall. He nodded at Zhu Tianhua and the others in satisfaction. Not bad. Everyone will be rewarded. Go back to your duties. Yes. Everyone fist saluted and left. They were a little excited. After teaching the secret guardians a lesson, they also calculated the resentment that they had been suppressing for a period of time. Shao Shi said, everyone is happy, but trouble has also come. Chu Li smiled. It's all up to Lady Shao now. I'll enter the imperial house immediately. Xiao Shi scoffed. I'd like to see how arrogant these people can be. She turned around and returned to Tianshu courtyard to change into her morning attire. Then she sat in a carriage and was escorted by Shao Qi to the imperial house to look for the empress. Chu Li sat in the Tianshu courtyard, deep in thought. The way to break the stalemate was easy. It was to let Xiao Shi enter the palace to see the empress. This was the easiest way to achieve this. The fickleness of the world and the viciousness of the human heart could be seen clearly at this moment. Gu Yu was unscrupulous. Once he saw that his martial arts had been crippled and that the emperor had stripped him of his position as a secret guardian, he immediately wanted to use his method to establish his authority. He wanted to take revenge on King An's imperial residence. The previous two secret guardians had intentionally provoked him to humiliate him and beat him up. Unfortunately, he had defeated them. If he had failed to defeat the two of them, he would have become the joke of the entire fairies' capital. Chu Li's name would have been completely ruined. From then on, Chu Li of the North and Du Feng of the South would no longer exist. After that, Chun Donghai and the other 13 secret guardians purely wanted to capture him and bring him back to the secret guardians' hall for trial. They also wanted to capture some protectors from King An's imperial residence as revenge for the death of the secret guardians. Zhu Tianhua. He raised his voice. Here. Zhu Tianhua's burly body appeared. Chu Li said, "How's the formation that I wanted you to practice?" "We're already very familiar with it," Zhu Tianhua said in a low voice. Chu Li nodded. Zhu Tianhua said, "Head Chief, are we going against the secret guardians' hall?" "I don't think so, but we must be prepared." Chu Li shook his head. If there were no accidents, Xiao Shi's trip to the imperial house to cause trouble with the empress would definitely be successful. In the end, the emperor would reprimand the secret guardians' hall. No matter what, it was inappropriate for the secret guardians' hall to attack King An's imperial residence so soon after King An's death. Gu Yu only had his eyes on Chu Li and Xiao Shi. He did not care about the dead King An, so he could not understand the emperor's thoughts. If Xiao Shi did not get the upper hand this time, then the emperor would be telling everyone that he had given up on King An's imperial residence. After King An's death, as a father, he would not take care of King An's wife and children. How disappointing would that be? 2 hours later, Xiao Shi and Xiao Qi returned. Xiao Shi was all smiles while Xiao Qi looked relaxed. Chu Li smiled. "How was it? The emperor has reprimanded Gu Yu." Xiao Shi scoffed. Chu Li said, "Only a reprimand." If it was just a reprimand, it would be too lenient. Instead, it would show a kind of connivance. "Gu Yu will come tomorrow to apologize," Xiao Shi said. Xiao Qi said, "Be careful of this person. He's really a despicable person." Chu Li nodded. The next morning, Gu Yu arrived as expected. The living room of King An's imperial residence was so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. Gu Yu sat on the armchair. His body was straight, and his aura was strong. He held a cup of tea and looked at Chu Li as if he was the owner. "Chief Chu, you have some complaints against me, don't you?" Chu Li said faintly. "Why do you say that, Commander?" "You must think that we shouldn't have taken away your position as a secret guardian right after your martial arts were crippled." Gu Yu said, "Sai, I didn't want to do that." Chu Li smiled faintly. "When I entered the palace to see the emperor, I asked him to resign from my position as a secret guardian. After all, my martial arts were crippled. It would be too much to occupy the position of a secret guardian. I thanked the emperor for his understanding, and he agreed. The secret guardians were not people who could be added or removed at will. A secret guardian for a day was a secret guardian for life. Secret guardians could not be removed because they knew some information that outsiders were not supposed to know." Oh, Gu Yu pretended to be surprised, but he was secretly annoyed. Chu Li's words were too infuriating. It was obvious that he was mocking Gu Yu for not having the right to decide on his matters. It was directly decided by the emperor. It was obvious that Chu Li did not respect him as a commander. Chu Li said, "Commander, I believe you received the emperor's decree?" "Yes." Gu Yu nodded. Chu Li said faintly, "Commander Gu, you've been trying to find fault with the princess to make a name for the Secret Guardians Hall and raise the status of the Secret Guardians, right?" "It's not to raise the status of the Secret Guardians. It's to restore the status of the Secret Guardians." Gu Yu waved his hand and said in a low voice, "The princess is a woman who is not inferior to men. We admire her, but for the Secret Guardians Hall, she has gone too far." Xiao Shi was the biggest headache for him now. He actually went to the Empress and used the Empress to pressure the Emperor, forcing him to apologize. All of his efforts were in vain, and he became a laughingstock instead. It would be difficult for him to raise his head in front of the imperial residence of King, and again, Chu Li said, "It's not good for a secret guardian to be too domineering. Commander Gu, you should understand." Gu Yu sneered and lowered his head to drink his tea. Chapter 11:11. P.S. The 38th Alliance leader is born. The leader is Red Autumn Leaf. "You're too selfish." "Ha!" Gu Yu sneered. Chu Li said, "You used to be a deputy commander, so it's understandable for you to target me. However, you're too narrow-minded now that you're a commander." "You're right," Gu Yu said. "There's no outsider here, so let's not beat around the bush. How can I maintain my dignity if I don't take you down as a centurion? May Air Courtyard has a high position in the Secret Guardians Hall. It's because of you that I can't order them around." Chu Li smiled. "Why don't you think about why you can't order them around? Commander Gu, isn't that obvious?" Gu Yu sneered. "It's because you're the one who instigated them. You've given them a new lease on life, and they only obey you. My words are **T. It's ridiculous that a commander can't order his subordinates around." Chu Li shook his head. "They only respect those who are capable. Commander Gu, you may have a high position, but you're not that important to the Secret Guardians. They often go through fire and water. If you're incompetent, it's useless even if they break their legs. They might even put themselves in danger. Are you saying that I'm incompetent?" Gu Yu narrowed his eyes and sneered. Chu Li said, "What abilities do you have? Are you as accurate as Commander Fu, as fair and just as Commander Su, or as observant as I am? You're only valued by the Emperor. What benefits or contributions do you have to the Secret Guardians Hall?" "You're quite the sharp-tongued one," Gu Yu sneered. Chu Li shook his head. "You obviously don't have any skills, but you're unwilling to be mediocre and insist on doing something earth-shattering. You don't know that the Secret Guardians Hall has to do things quietly and not attract attention. You've done it the wrong way and stirred up the Secret Guardians Hall into a mess." Gu Yu's face darkened. Chu Li continued, "You can't establish
The
your
Emperor was
authority
amiable
with your
towards
abilities.
him.
And
You
the
use
princes
people to
also
establish
welcomed
your
him
authority
with
as
smiles.
if everyone will respect
Among the
you
others,
if
there
you
was no
defeat
one who
this
ridiculed
person
or
or kill that
criticized him
person.
like Chu
You don't
Li.
know that their
Chu Li's
secretly
words were
mocking
like
you
knives
and looking down
and
on you.
swords, every
Shut
word
up.
hitting the vital
Gu Yu
points,
shouted
and was
Chu Li smirked.
extremely vicious.
"Am I right?"
Chu Li said,
"Shut up.
"You're
Gu
favored by
Yu
the
gritted
Emperor,
his teeth,
although
and
I
glared
can't
at him
compare to him.
coldly.
I'm not
Be
someone you
careful
can easily
of
bully."
your loose lips.
"Prince, you
Chu Li
rashly
could not
bullied
help
me.
but laugh.
Do you think that
Look,
the Emperor
you're
can
doing this
bully
again.
me
You're
just
always
because he
trying
took
to
away
oppress
my
others.
secret guardian
Do
status?
you think you can do
You're so
whatever
eager for
you
quick
want
success
just
that you
because
can't see the
you're
situation
favored by the Emperor?
clearly. Don't you know
can't
that the
wait to
Emperor's
take care
favor
of
is the
King
most
An's
unreliable
imperial
thing?
residence.
Today you
Don't
are
you think about
prosperous,
what the
but
Emperor will
tomorrow
think?
you might be
With a
hated
mind
by the
like
Emperor.
yours,
You
shut up.
really can't
Gu
hold the
Yu
position
slammed
of
the
commander
table,
of
sending
the
the
Secret
teacup
Guardians
flying
Hall.
and
If you
spilling
know
a
what's
few
good for
drops
you,
of tea.
you should
Chu
resign
Li
from your
smiled
position
and
as
said no more.
commander before
Gu
you
Yu
make
took a
any
deep
big
breath
mistakes. And
You can just
suppressed his
be a
anger.
deputy commander
He had never
and
heard
show off
such
your
harsh
power.
words in his
Maybe
life.
the Emperor
will still remember your good deeds. If you make a few mistakes, the Emperor's favor will be almost gone. When that happens, what will happen to you?" Guyu took a deep breath and said coldly, "Do you think I don't dare to kill you?" Chuli laughed. "You dare to kill me? I'd like to see how capable the assassins of the Secret Guardians Hall are. However, Commander Gu, if you want to make a move, don't blame me for being rude." "So, what if you're a cripple?" Guyu said faintly. He was in a better mood. He suddenly felt that there was no need for him to listen to Chuli. A cripple was only left with the ability to talk. He would not be able to withstand a single blow. There was no need for him to take it to heart. Chuli smiled. "You can try. Let's see if I can kill you." "How arrogant!" Guyu scoffed. At that moment, Seo Shi and Seo Chi came in. They were dressed in spotless white tunics. Suru, Yang Su, and Menglon were beside them. "Guyu greets the princess." Guyu stood up and fist saluted. He said in a serious tone, "I failed to restrain my subordinates and offended King En's imperial residence. It's a sin. Please forgive me, princess." Seo Shi did not even look at him. She gracefully sat on the main seat, while Seo Chi sat beside her. Her movements were graceful and pleasing to the eye. Suru and the other two stood behind them and quietly sized Guyu up. Chuli smiled. Guyu's expression stiffened. He put down his hands. Head steward Zhu personally served the tea and quietly withdrew. Chuli smiled. "Princess, Commander Gu is here to apologize. It seems like he's very reluctant." Seo Shi cast a sidelong glance at Guyu and said, "I dare not. I'll be grateful if Commander Gu didn't order the imperial residence to be demolished. I'm an orphan and a widow. With His Royal Highness gone, there's no one to call the shots. They deserve to be bullied." Guyu frowned. He was secretly annoyed. She was pointing at his nose and scolding him. King for bullying the imperial residence was not weak. Instead, they crippled the Secret Guardians Hall and even a Centaurian. It was a huge loss. Moreover, Chen Donghai was his right-hand man. If he wanted to control the Secret Guardians Hall, he needed Chen Donghai's help. Otherwise, he would not know what to do if he was in the dark and did not know anything. Crippling Chen Donghai was equivalent to breaking his right-hand man. It was a huge loss. Chen Donghai took advantage of the situation and still acted like a good boy. Now that he had lost his men, he had to apologize. It was intolerable. Seo Shi calmly replied, "Please, Commander Gu, I don't dare to accept your apology. Please be merciful and spare my life. Commander Gu." Guyu gritted his teeth. Chuli coughed softly. "Commander Gu, are you dissatisfied with the Emperor's decree?" He saw that Guyu was about to explode in anger and flip the table. Thus, he followed up with a sentence that hit the nail on the head. Guyu's entire body instantly relaxed, and he swallowed his breath. If he really left in a huff, Seo Shi would definitely go to the imperial house and complain. He would inevitably be reprimanded by the emperor and forced to apologize. Instead of that, it was better to bear with it. Chuli smiled. "Commander Gu, do you think I'm trying to intimidate you with empty words? Do you know the identity of my wife?" "Humph, who doesn't know the third lady of the public house?" Guyu said coldly. Chuli said, "If my wife kills the Secret Guardians Hall and cripples a few grandmasters, or even you, how do you think the emperor will punish my wife?" Guyu looked at the cold Seo Chi, and his heart trembled. The High Duke's public house had a high status. If Seo Chi really did that, the emperor would definitely punish her. However, the punishment would not be too severe. At most, he would fine her with some money or silver, but he would not hurt her. Chuli smiled. "Commander Gu, you should know if my wife can do it with her martial arts." Chapter 11-12. Seo Shi squinted her eyes at him. She hated Guyu to the core. He took advantage of the fact that Chuli had lost his martial arts to humiliate and bully him. This kind of person should be killed directly. How could a few words of apology be enough to appease her hatred? Chuli coughed softly. Princess, forget it. We can't really kill him. Seoshur scoffed. I'm not willing to let him go just like that. Chuli pondered. How about we get him to compensate us with something? Sure. Seoshur replied. Chuli asked, how about the primary heaven pill from Green Deer Cliff? Not bad. Seoshur nodded. Chuli turned to look at Guyu. Guyu shook his head, solemnly. Forgive me for being powerless. The primary heaven pill is a secret medicine of Green Deer Cliff. It's rare, and I heard that the required spirit medicine has been lost. Every pill used means one less. It's impossible to get the reversal pill without a good relationship. Then you should go back, Seoshur said. Guyu asked, Princess, why do you have to make things difficult for me? Have you forgotten how you made things difficult for us? Seoshur snapped. You're the only one who can make things difficult for us, but we can't make things difficult for you. Sigh. Guyu sighed and closed fist saluted. Princess, if I can get the primary heaven pill, I'll definitely send it to you, but I'm powerless. Please forgive me, Princess. Then cut the crap and scram. Seoshur waved her hand impatiently. Guyu's face turned pale, and his hair stood on end. He had never been humiliated like this since he was young. It was intolerable. Seoshur took a sip of tea and did not look at him. Just as Guyu was about to explode, Xiaoqi said, Forget it. Don't make things difficult for him. It seems like we really can't get it. Yes, thank you, Madam Chu. Guyu took a deep breath to suppress his anger and closed fist saluted. Xiaoqi said, I hope you can control your subordinates and don't disturb the peace of King An's imperial residence. Of course, Guyu replied. You're so kind. Seoshur glared at Xiaoqi. Chuli chuckled. The three of them cooperated very well, as if they could read each other's minds. If he did not make things difficult for Guyu, Guyu would bear a grudge against him. In the future, he would find an opportunity to do something behind the scenes. It would be very difficult for King An's imperial residence to find out. It would be very troublesome. With such an excessive request, Guyu was unable to fulfill it. Furthermore, Xiaoqi and Xiaoshur played the good cop and the bad cop, causing Guyu to almost give up on the idea. Guyu awkwardly left King An's imperial residence. In the evening, Chuli was practicing his swordsmanship in the backyard. Lung Qiu, who was dressed in a light green outfit, walked in. She held a long sword in her hand, and her face was sullen. Her beautiful face was tense, and she stood still next to Chuli. It was obvious that she had something to say. Chuli turned to look at her and stopped his sword. Lung Qiu said, Chief Director, tomorrow is the hunting ceremony. Chuli nodded and smiled. Don't you love the hunting ceremony? Why are you unhappy? Although he killed King An, he did not feel guilty towards Lung Qiu. Instead, he was very calm. He had never associated Lung Qiu with King An deserved to die. Lung Qiu, Lung Qing, and the others did not have any feelings for King An. Although they were father and daughter, they rarely met. Even if they did, they would only exchange a few words as if they were strangers. I love the hunting ceremony, but they didn't invite us. Lung Qiu waved her long sword in dissatisfaction. Chuli raised his eyebrows. They didn't invite you? Yes, they only invited us. Lung Qiu scoffed. They've gone too far. Chuli frowned. Who's in charge this time? It seems like Granduncle Bao is busy, so Uncle King is in charge. Lung Qiu said, It must be that B** starred Lung Tao's doing. Chuli pondered. Do we have to be invited? Yes. Lung Qiu nodded helplessly. Chuli said, He thinks that it's not appropriate for the imperial residents to attend the hunting ceremony since His Royal Highness has just passed away, right? Humph, they won't be so kind. They must think that the imperial residence has declined and that we're not worthy of them. Lung Chio waved her long sword and said, hatefully. Chuli shook his head and laughed. You're thinking too much. That must be it. They've gone too far. Lung Chio scoffed. Chuli said, it's fine if we don't attend this time. We'll just attend the next time. If we do, people will talk behind our backs. If they were to attend the hunting ceremony this time, they would definitely be greeted with sympathetic gazes. There might even be people who would take the opportunity to cause trouble. I want Mother and the princess to relax. Lung Chio said, my mother has been depressed. She'll be fine after a while. Is Princess Shui very close to His Royal Highness? Chuli asked. It's not that they're close. She just feels guilty and short of breath without a man at home. Lung Chio pouted. Actually, I can live without a man. What's the big deal? Mother is so weak. Chuli said, Princess Shui's thinking is right. Without His Royal Highness, many things are inconvenient. Let's forget about this hunting ceremony. We'll talk about it next time. All right, Lung Chio said reluctantly. Chuli shook his head. Where's Miss Qing? She's practicing her swordsmanship, Lung Chio said. She's preparing to teach Lung Tao a lesson the next time we meet. All right, teach him a lesson. Chuli smiled. He's been beaten up so many times. Hasn't he learned his lesson? He's an asshole. He'll definitely take revenge when he gets the chance. Lung Chio scoffed. This time, he must have seen that father is gone. That's why he didn't greet us. Chuli pondered. In the end, he shook his head. You'll know the next time we meet. He felt that it was unlikely. Lung Tao was now fawning over Lung Chio. It was not a romantic relationship. It was more like a friendship forged through fighting. However, he was too lazy to care about these trivial matters. Even if Lung Tao was lazy and took the opportunity to bully the imperial residence of King, and it was just a child's play, it was not worth fighting. After talking with Lung Chio for a while, he returned to Tianshu courtyard. He found Princess Shui and Princess Song there. They had returned to their parents' home a while ago. They did not stay in the imperial residence. After returning, they came to Seo Shi's place to talk. Once king and was gone, they could only listen to Seo Shi. Seo Shi had the final say in the imperial residence. After all, the title was fundamental. Moreover, they had a guilty conscience. Seo Shi was full of confidence. In addition to Seo Shi's identity, they felt safe staying in Tianshu courtyard. Seeing him enter, the two princesses nodded to greet him. Princess Shui smiled sweetly. Head chief, you came at the right time. We were just discussing. Chuli smiled. Princess Shui, what are you discussing? I think we should bring the young prince back to the imperial residence. Princess Shui said. Chuli was stunned. Suan? Yes. Princess Shui said. Now that the imperial residence doesn't have a male master, everyone is bullied. If Suan comes back, even if he's just a child, it'll be justifiable. Suan is in isolated cultivation at the Titanium Temple. Chuli pondered. He's at a crucial point in his cultivation. He can't come back now. Princess Shui said, cultivation can't be done anywhere. Our imperial residence has a cultivation courtyard too. Princess Song nodded. I heard that the imperial residence's cultivation courtyard can speed up cultivation. Why don't you go in and cultivate, head chief? Chuli shook his head and smiled. That's the Royal Highness's courtyard. How can I overstep my boundaries? The Royal Highness isn't here anymore. There's nothing to do anyway. Princess Song said. Chuli shook his head. If he did not cultivate the concentration talisman, he would naturally covet the cultivation courtyard. However, he had the concentration talisman. The cultivation courtyard did not matter to him. After all, He was just a head chief. He was not a royal highness. Once he entered, the emperor might take the opportunity to attack him. Princess Shui rolled her eyes at him. You're too old-fashioned. Does that mean the young prince can't come back? Chu Li frowned and shook his head. Not now. I'll ask him after he's in isolated cultivation. The titanium temple won't let him go now. Chapter 11:13. As Princess Song sighed, Guyu from the Secret Guardians' hall sighed as well. Chun Donghai, who had been crippled of his martial arts, stood in the main hall of the Secret Guardians' hall with an ugly expression on his face. Guyu asked in a low voice, "Not a single clue?" Chun Donghai gulped and smiled bitterly. "Commander, the culprit is using the martial arts of the Tempest Temple, but it's only the most common fist technique of the Tempest Temple. It's long been spread to the outside world, and most people in the martial arts world know this fist technique. It's really impossible to identify the culprit from this fist technique." Guyu did not give up. "What about inner energy?" "I can't see anything with my inner force either." Chen Donghai sighed. "This person's inner energy is fierce and domineering. He killed with a single punch. Minister Li's entire family of 35 people was killed with a single punch. What about the Li residence's protectors?" Guyu scoffed. "They can't be killed with a single punch, can they? Another punch." Chen Donghai nodded and said, "That's why I said that this person is a top-notch master, who is extremely rare. Maybe what?" Guyu's face darkened as he said impatiently, "If you have something to say, say it. Maybe he really is a master from the Tempest Temple." Chen Donghai said, helplessly. Guyu said, "Arrest them even if they're from the Tempest Temple. This case is too big. Everyone in Fairy's capital knows about it. If we can't catch the culprit, the Secret Guardians' Hall might as well guard the Imperial Mausoleum." "Yes." Chen Donghai nodded, helplessly, with a bitter expression on his face. Guyu raised his head and asked, "All right, has Commander Fu left?" Chen Donghai said, "I think he just left yesterday. It was very sad. Not a single person went to send him off." "Humph, he doesn't know how to behave himself." Guyu sneered. "Didn't Head Chief Chu go?" "No." Chen Donghai shook his head. "Chu Li has never left his house. Also, I heard that he didn't invite anyone from King An's imperial residence to the hunting ceremony this time. It seems like he intentionally left King An's imperial residence behind. He took pleasure in the misfortune of others. When he thought about how Shao Qi had crippled his cultivation level, he was filled with hatred. Unfortunately, he knew that there was no way he could take revenge. Shao Qi was the lady of the High Duke's public house. No matter how daring he was, he could not kill Shao Qi. If he wanted to cripple her, his martial arts skills were not enough, so he could only swallow his anger. Fortunately, Commander Gu saw that he was reliable and could communicate with the upper and lower levels, so he continued to use him. But now he could only give advice from the side and could not personally go to work. He had already become a cripple. Guyu scoffed. "Let's have a dogfight. The more the merrier." That's right. Chen Donghai smiled. "Where are the fellows from May Air Courtyard? Or not?" Guyu asked coldly. Chen Donghai said, "This time we offered a generous reward, and they did take action. They went over to check the scene, but they all shook their heads and said that they were powerless. They couldn't find the murderer, and the murderer didn't leave any clues behind. They're also a bunch of good-for-nothings." Guyu sneered and frowned. Could it be that they didn't work hard enough? That won't happen. Chen Donghai shook his head. They don't care about this. Since they've accepted the mission, they won't be fooled. They'll definitely do their best. This time, they've probably been ordered by Chu Li to not go against the commander anymore. Despicable. Gu Yu slammed the armrest of his armchair and gritted his teeth. In the end, he sighed dejectedly. Princess Seo, that crazy woman, really can't be provoked. Chu Li is quite tactful. Yes. Chen Donghai nodded. As they spoke, footsteps were heard from outside. Liang whispered from outside, "Commander, there are Imperial House protectors outside requesting an audience." "Let them in," Gu Yu said. "Yes." Liang responded and quickly brought two Imperial House protectors in black into the main hall. Gu Yu stood up and fist saluted. He forced a smile. "Elder Zhou, Elder Hu, I'm sorry for troubling you to come here personally." "Master Gu, we're here on the Emperor's orders to see the progress." The two black-robed elders chuckled. "Is there any progress?" "Not bad. There's some progress." Gu Yu smiled. The thin black-robed elder said in a deep voice, "The Emperor has decreed that the secret guardians Hall must solve this case within 3 days and avenge Minister Li's family." 3 days. Chen Donghai cried out involuntarily. The two black-robed elders turned to look at him. Chen Donghai hurriedly fist saluted. "Greetings, sirs. 3 days is too short, I'm afraid." Gu Yu nodded helplessly. "To be honest, I haven't made much progress on my end. The murderer is a top-notch master. He's ferocious and overbearing. He killed one person with one punch, and none of the 35 people in the Li residence were lucky enough to escape. No one saw what he looked like, and we couldn't tell what martial arts he cultivated. The Emperor doesn't care about these things." The thin black-robed elder shook his head. "The impact of this case is too bad. If it's not solved as soon as possible, everyone in Fairy's capital, and even the Ji dynasty will lose confidence in the imperial court. No matter what, it's impossible to solve this case in 3 days." Chen Donghai smiled bitterly. "Sirs, solving this case isn't as easy as you think. Do you dare to say this to the Emperor?" The other chubby, black-robed elder said impatiently, 3 days is 3 days. There's no room for negotiation. If you can't do it, then you'll be punished." Sigh. Chen Donghai's expression was bitter. Gu Yu frowned, and his face was gloomy. "All right, we've already passed on the edict. I can't help you with the rest." The thin elder fist saluted and was about to leave. Chen Donghai quickly said, "Sirs, you can actually help us." Gu Yu turned his head and glared at him, hinting him to stop talking nonsense. The two black-robed elders were internal guards of the imperial house. They usually stayed by the Emperor's side, and were sent out this time to show the Emperor's concern about this case. If these two elders were unhappy and slandered the Emperor, they would be in big trouble. "All right, tell me, what can this old man do to help?" The chubby old man smiled and said, "If I really can help, this old man will not be stingy. We'll need someone to solve this case." Chen Donghai said, "It won't be difficult to solve this case with this person." "Who?" Gu Yu asked curiously. The two Imperial House internal guards looked at him curiously. "Tell me, who's capable?" The chubby black-robed elder smiled. Chen Donghai looked at Gu Yu and gritted his teeth. "Chu Li. Which Chu Li?" the black-robed elder asked. Chen Donghai hesitated and looked at Gu Yu. Gu Yu frowned. "The head chief of King An's imperial residence. Chu Li?" "Yes." Chen Donghai nodded. "We don't have any clues, but Chu Li might have some. If he helps, he'll definitely solve this case and catch the culprit. Chu Li's martial arts has been crippled. He's useless." Gu Yu said coldly. Chen Donghai said, "Even if he's crippled, his eyesight is still there." Gu Yu glanced at him and knew what he was thinking. He wanted to drag Chu Li down with him so that he could be their scapegoat. Chapter 11:14. Sirs, Chu Li doesn't belong to us secret guardians anymore. Moreover, he was just stripped of his position by the Emperor. I'm afraid he's still resentful and might not agree to help. We can only ask the emperor for a decree. It's useless for us to beg him. Chun Donghai said with a fist salute. Oh, that Chu Li, the chubby elder nodded. The one who was sent to the imperial mausoleum? He came back a while ago. That's him, Chun Donghai hurriedly said. Although he's arrogant, he's truly capable. If we want to solve this case in 3 days, we'll need him to do it himself. Other than him, I'm afraid no one else in Fairy's capital can do it. Is this young man that good? The chubby elder smiled and shook his head. You can't solve the case without him. It's not luck that he managed to become a centurion from a normal secret guardian in just half a year. Chun Donghai tried his best to put in a good word for Chu Li so that he could convince the two to help him get a decree from the emperor. Then he would drag Chu Li over. He did everything he could to drag Chu Li into this mess. Firstly, he harbored resentment and wanted Chu Li to suffer along with him. Secondly, he had a faint hope that if anyone could solve this case within 3 days, it would definitely be Chu Li. No one else had that kind of ability. After all, the emperor had issued a decree to solve the case in 3 days. If they could not do it, everyone would be punished. Perhaps someone would be sent to guard the imperial mausoleum, or the commander would lose the emperor's favor. The emperor's favor was crucial for the commanders of secret guardians, Hall. If they lost the emperor's favor, their position would be unstable. Their honor and disgrace depended on the commander. If the commander lost power, they would be finished too. Just like Chu Li, he was forced to leave Secret Guardians Hall because of Fu Mengshan and Su Huanda's loss of power. The two elders looked at Guyu. Guyu nodded helplessly. Chu Li is indeed a powerful person. He was originally a centurion, but the emperor took away his secret guardian status. Since he took away the secret guardian status, can he help you solve the case? The thin elder asked. His eyes were bright, as if he could see through Guyu and Chun Donghai. He knew the nature of these secret guardians, Hall people. They were like wolves when it came to taking credit. How could they allow others to do it? He would not be able to see any merit in this kind of thing, and it would only bring him trouble instead. If he could avoid it, he would try to avoid it. He might not be recommending Chu Li out of good intentions. If Chu Li failed, the two of them would be implicated instead. Guyu replied, since it's His Majesty's order, he has to obey it even if he's resentful. After all, he's a subject. The thin old man muttered. The chubby old man smiled and said, All right, I'm just mentioning it. Let's talk about it in front of the emperor and see what this Chu Li is really capable of. The thin old man glared at him. The chubby old man said, If this case can't be solved based on His Majesty's intentions, I guess all of you will be finished. Xiao Gu, you won't be able to get any benefits either. I'm afraid you won't be able to keep your position. Guyu's expression changed. Old Zhou, the thin elder said in a deep voice. The chubby old man chuckled. It's rare for little Gu to be here. I should at least give little Gu a word of advice at a crucial time. The thin elder said, Don't listen to his nonsense. It's not reliable. But it will not be a light punishment. You should try your best to solve the case first. Yes, Guyu said in a deep voice. Both of them were the emperor's personal protectors. Elder Zhou would not spout nonsense. It seemed that his position in the emperor's heart was in danger and needed to be reversed. He must invite Chu Li back. Ever since he entered the secret guardian's hall, he had not made any contributions and had disappointed the emperor. He had also heard about Chu Li's prowess from others. Even Chun Donghai, who hated Chu Li, was amazed by Chu Li's abilities and felt ashamed of himself. If not for that, Mei Air Courtyard would not have been so difficult to deal with. Chu Li was practicing his swordsmanship in the courtyard. He was starting to see results when he integrated the less ultimate sword into the 7 forms of godly sword. The less ultimate sword was exceptionally mysterious. The more he comprehended it, the more he felt it was exquisite, and the more he admired the ultimate temple. The next time he had the chance, he must visit the ultimate temple and personally experience their less ultimate sword. He might even learn the ultimate sword technique. The ultimate sword technique was a sword formation. As long as he learned it, he could form a formation with his fellow disciples. He had seen it before, and it was indeed exquisite beyond imagination. The Fu dynasty's martial arts and the Ji dynasty's martial arts were not the same, but it was indeed more exquisite and powerful. The imperial edict has arrived. Chu Li, receive the edict. A loud voice suddenly came from outside. Chu Li frowned. He hated the imperial edict and hated the emperor. Once the imperial edict was sent out, nothing good would come out of it. Shao Qi appeared and saw that he was standing still. Aren't you going to receive the edict? Chu Li sighed. Just say that I'm not here. Do you really want to do that? Shao Qi asked. Chu Li said, it's best to hide. All right. Shao Qi nodded. I'll go inform them. Go hide. Chu Li nodded. Shao Qi left his courtyard and went to the imperial residence's main gate. Two elders in black stood at the bottom of the steps of the imperial residence. They looked stern and dignified. They were Zhou and Hu, the ones who passed the edict to Guyu earlier. Where's Chu Li? Thin Elder asked. He frowned when he saw the imperial residence's main gate open, and a fairy-like woman came out. It was not Chu Li. Shao Qi fist saluted and said coldly, My husband is not in the imperial residence. May I know what the emperor wants? Not here? Thin Elder asked. How can he not be in the imperial residence? My husband has gone to another place to cultivate in isolation, Shao Qi said. Forgive him for not receiving the edict. The chubby elder asked, Can he rush back in time? Shao Qi shook her head. He won't be able to rush back in time. Even if he gets the news, it'll take 5 to 6 days. Why did he go to such a faraway place to cultivate in isolation? Thin Elder frowned. Shao Qi said, Fairy's capital is full of trifling matters, and he can't calm down. He can only cultivate in peace, and recover his cultivation level as soon as possible when he's far away. 5 to 6 days. The chubby elder shook his head. It's too late. Shao Qi said, May I know what the emperor wants? He wants Chu Li to investigate a case. My husband is no longer a secret guardian of the Secret Guardians Hall, so he has no right to investigate. Moreover, he has lost his martial arts, so he won't be able to investigate the case even if he wants to. Please report this to the emperor, Shao Qi said. He. If that's the case, we can only report it as it is. The chubby elder laughed. The two of them glanced at King An's imperial residence and vaguely felt that Chu Li was in the imperial residence, but he was avoiding the edict. This little guy was really bold, but he couldn't expose this matter himself. The two of them returned to the imperial house and went to Chongwen Hall to reply to the edict. There was only an old servant in Chongwen Hall who was holding a horsetail whisk and standing in a corner. The Ji dynasty's emperor, Long Wufeng, was sitting on the dragon throne. He was dressed in a bright yellow robe and had his hands on the table. He asked, Isn't this young man coming out to receive the edict? Thin Elder answered. He said that he went to cultivate in isolation outside Fairy's capital. Humph, Long Wufeng scoffed. He has a good excuse. Emperor, is he really hiding in the residence? The chubby elder asked. He can't be that bold, can he? Chapter 11:15. Due to their close relationship with the emperor, they did not hesitate to ask for the reason. Long Wufeng sighed. He wants a primary heaven pill to recover his martial arts. If I don't give him the primary heaven pill, he won't take the case. This young fella is too bold. How dare He threatened the emperor. The chubby elder laughed. The thin elder frowned. Isn't he afraid that the emperor will be enraged and send him back to the imperial mausoleum? I wish I could send him back to the imperial mausoleum. Lung Wufeng scoffed. But King An's imperial residence can't do without him now. The orphans and widows are pitiful. They can only rely on him. If he punished Chu Li, who was the head chief of King An's imperial residence, what would the others think? If that happened, King An's imperial residence would be in a more difficult situation. It would be like adding snow to snow, and he could not bring himself to do that. That's why he's so unscrupulous, isn't it? The thin old man said in a deep voice. Lung Wufeng shook his head. He's strong without desires. He doesn't want to get involved in the fairies' capital. He's satisfied to be the son-in-law of the High Duke's public house. A hero's home is the grave of a gentleman. I can't wait to throw him into the imperial mausoleum right now. What should we do? The thin elder frowned. This fella is a pain in the neck. He's hard to deal with. The only thing we can do now is to use the primary heaven pill. Lung Wufeng shook his head and laughed. Although I'm the emperor, I can't do whatever I want. I'll still be forced by this fella to hand over the primary heaven pill. Is there no one better than him? The thin elder scoffed. There are so many powerful people in the fairies' capital. In terms of investigating cases, nobody can compare to him. Lung Wufeng nodded. He solved all the cases that he handled. No matter how difficult the case is, he can always solve it. He's that good. The chubby elder chuckled. He's a strange person indeed. It's a common problem for him to be arrogant. Since he's so capable, it's understandable for him to be a little arrogant. Isn't it? Lung Wufeng nodded. As long as he can solve the case in 3 days, it's fine to give him a primary heaven pill. How can you confuse what the emperor gave him with what he forced the emperor to give? This kind of official should be severely punished. The thin elder said, hatefully, if we punish him, where are we going to find people to solve the case? The fat old man laughed. Your Majesty, he's a genius after all. Don't lower yourself to his level. Lung Wufeng nodded. Then shall we make another trip? The fat old man smiled and said, shall we give him the primary heaven pill? He has the nerve to come out. The thin elder snorted and said, didn't you say that he would only be able to return in 5 to 6 days? Now that we have given him the heavenly yuan pill, he will immediately come out. Isn't it obvious that he is lying? That's true. The fat old man nodded. It seems that solving the case in 3 days is impossible. Let's take a look, Lung Wufeng said. Yes, the thin elder said in a deep voice. Lung Wufeng ordered, men, bring me a heaven primary pill. Yes, the old attendant floated out. After a while, he returned with a small box in his hand. It was dark purple and faintly glowed. One look, and anyone could tell that it was not an ordinary object. The old attendant presented it with both hands, and Lung Wufeng took it and opened it. He stared blankly at the pill and looked like he was reminiscing. Then he sighed. I obtained this primary heaven pill when I was young and roamed the martial arts world. I didn't expect to use it today. Your Majesty roamed the martial arts world when you were young? Of course. Lung Wufeng smiled. Your Majesty would be neglecting your duty if you know nothing about the martial arts world. After all, the martial arts world is a place that you can't avoid. Did you make a name for yourself, Your Majesty? The fat old man asked curiously. Lung Wufeng shook his head. I didn't make a name for myself. I'm just a nobody. Based on Your Majesty's martial arts, that shouldn't be the case. You must be keeping a low profile on purpose, right? The fat old man chuckled. Lung Wufeng shook his head. My martial arts back then weren't that great. He looked like he was reminiscing. There was a hint of confusion and melancholy on his face, but there was also a hint of sweetness as he smiled faintly. The two old men knew that he was thinking about women when they saw his expression. The fat old man was curious. He asked with a smile, "Your Majesty, did you meet a woman you like?" "Yes," Lung Wufeng admitted right away. "I met a stunning beauty back then, and we got along well." Unfortunately, in the end, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. Emperors have the least freedom in the world. He then waved his hand. "Forget it. Let's not talk about this. This primary heaven pill is very important to me, so I really don't want to take it out unless I have no other choice but to give it to him." "This be asterisk starred." The thin old man scoffed. "Actually, it's fine if you don't give it to him. Doesn't he have a wife? Give his wife a small reward, and he'll come out to help obediently." This was both a reward and a threat. If he did not agree to it, he would punish his wife. They had just gotten married, so it was a sweet time. His wife was the most important to him, so she could directly grasp his Achilles heel. Forget it. He needs martial arts too, or he'll have an excuse if he can't solve the case. Lung Wufeng shook his head. "His martial arts were crippled because of my order. Helping him recover his martial arts will be considered as compensation." "Your Majesty, you're broad-minded. I'm impressed." The fat old man fist saluted. The two of them arrived at King An's imperial residence again. This time, they did not make a big deal out of it. Xiao Shi and Xiao Qi personally came out to welcome them. The two of them entered the main hall, sat down, and took a sip of tea. The thin old man placed the purple box on the table and pushed it in front of Xiao Qi. "Madam Chu, Princess Xiao, we're following the Emperor's orders to hand this primary heaven pill to Chief Chu so that he can solve Minister Li's case within 3 days." "Solve the case in 3 days?" Xiao Qi frowned. Xiao Shi smiled. "Sure, no problem. He'll be back soon." The fat old man chuckled. "Isn't it going to take 6 to 7 days at the earliest? His isolated cultivation is quite far away from Fairy's capital. We have our own ways." Xiao Shi said impatiently, "As long as Chu Li recovers his martial arts, he'll be back tonight and can investigate the case tomorrow." "Oh." The fat old man smiled at her. The thin old man said in a deep voice, "Could it be that he is hiding in the prince's mansion? You're imagining things. You're gauging the heart of a gentleman with your own mean measure." Xiao Shi scoffed. "We'll send a carrier pigeon to deliver the pill. He'll recover his martial arts after consuming it and will be back in no time. If he doesn't recover his martial arts, it'll take him 6 to 7 days on horseback." "I see." The fat old man laughed. The two of them were even more certain that Chu Li was hiding in the imperial residence. This young man was extremely daring. "Since the primary heaven pill is here, we won't keep you here for long. Hurry up and give it to him." Xiao Shi said, "Don't waste time. If you can't solve the case, you'll betray the Emperor's trust." "That's right." The thin old man stood up and fist saluted. "Consume the spirit pill. If you can't solve the case in 3 days, you'll be letting this primary heaven pill down." "That's right." Xiao Shi waved her hand and smiled. Chapter 11:16. P.S. Update complete. Double monthly ticket for the last hour. Early in the morning, outside the Secret Guardians' Hall, 2 young secret guardians stood majestically next to 2 large stone lions. Their hands were on the hilts of their swords, and they looked like they were about to unsheath their swords at any time. Their eyes were bright and threatening, and they were filled with murderous intent. Chu Li was dressed in a white robe. He approached them leisurely and at ease. When the 2 young secret guardians saw Chu Li, they were overjoyed and hurriedly went forward to fist salute. Greetings, Centurion Chu. Chu Li waved his hand. I'm no longer a Centurion. You don't have to address me like that. Centurion Chu, please come in. The two of them smiled. Chu Li said, It's better if you go and inform them that I want to see the commander. There's no need. Centurion Chu, you're not an outsider. Just go in directly. Ha, I'm an outsider now. Don't let me in like this. It's inevitable that the commander will fly into a rage. You guys better go and report this. All right. The two helplessly agreed. A moment later, Chen Donghai arrived with large strides. Before he had even stepped out of the main door, he had already made a fist salute from afar. It's a great honor to have Chief Chu here. Please come in quickly. The commander is already waiting. Chu Li fist saluted and smiled at Chen Donghai before entering the main door. The two of them walked side by side to the hall. Chen Donghai did not show any signs of resentment, as he hid it very well. However, he could not hide it from Chu Li's eyes. Chu Li knew that Chen Donghai could not let out his resentment. Instead, Chen Donghai was looking for an opportunity to make things difficult for him and drag him down with him. Although he had seized the opportunity to extort the Emperor's primary heaven pill, which would allow him to rightfully recover his martial arts and was a blessing in disguise, he was not prepared to let Chen Donghai off. Seeing how the two of them were getting along so well, no one would have thought that they had been fighting each other to the death just 2 days ago. Chen Donghai's martial arts had been crippled by Chu Li's wife, so their hatred for each other ran deeper than the sea. Chu Li said nonchalantly, Centurion Chen, if you want to recover your martial arts, you might as well consume a primary heaven pill. Heavenly Yuan pill. Chen Donghai laughed bitterly. That thing isn't something we can come across. It's a secret medicine unique to Green Deer Cliff. It's extremely rare, so we don't dare to hope for it. Chu Li nodded. That's true. Chief Chu, I see that your martial arts have recovered, right? Not bad. Did he take the Heavenly Yuan pill? Exactly. Where did you get the Heavenly Yuan pill? It's hard to refuse a gift from His Majesty, Chu Li said casually. He wanted to announce it on purpose. The Emperor was afraid of losing face and did not want to leak it out, but he wanted everyone to know. This way, everyone would know the Emperor's support for the imperial residence of King An. He was the head chief of the imperial residence of King An. Why would the Emperor treat him so well and bestow him the primary heaven pill? It was obvious that he was afraid that others would bully the imperial residence of King An. Everyone could think of this. Bestowed by His Majesty. Chen Donghai choked on his breath and almost fainted from anger. Both of them had their martial arts crippled. However, one of them was completely crippled, and it would be extremely difficult for him to start cultivating again. Who knew how much effort he would have to put in? Yet the other one had directly consumed a Heavenly Yuan pill and immediately recovered his martial arts. How infuriating, and how much despair was this? Chu Li smiled and said, Don't rush, take your time. The second round of cultivation will be much faster than the first. I believe that you'll be able to cultivate inner energy in less than a month, and you'll be able to master it in about a year. Chen Donghai wanted to slap Chu Li to death, but he still wore a smile on his face. Yes, the second round of cultivation will be much faster. Centurion Chen, you're still young, you can catch up? Chu Li said. Yes, yes. Chen Donghai's smile became more bitter. He hated Chu Li to the core, but he could only endure it. He was no match for Chu Li now. The two soon arrived at the main hall. Gu Yu was sitting on the armchair in the middle of the hall. He stood up and gave a fist salute. Chief Chu, thank you. Chu Li said, You don't have to be so polite, Commander. Let's go there and have a look. He was too lazy to talk to Gu Yu, as it was useless. It was enough for him to maintain his politeness on the surface. He knew that Guyu wanted to kill him. All right. Guyu secretly sighed in relief. He looked at Chu Li and was stunned when he realized that Chu Li's cultivation level had been restored. Chief Chu, you've recovered your martial arts? Chu Li smiled. Yes, the Emperor bestowed the primary heaven pill to help me recover my martial arts. I can't repay the Emperor's kindness. The Emperor really does favor Chief Chu. Guyu forced a smile. He felt bitter. The primary heaven pill was not an ordinary spirit pill, that he could not find himself. He did not expect the Emperor to give Chu Li the primary heaven pill. Chu Li gave a fist salute in the direction of the imperial house with a smile. It was satisfying to see the two of them with nowhere to vent their anger. The three of them left the secret guardian's hall and rode to the minister's residence. It was the residence of Minister Li of the Ministry of Works. The secret guardians surrounded the residence, forbidding anyone from approaching. After the three of them entered, Chu Li quickly checked the 35 corpses and the environment of the residence. Half a day later, he brought them to an inn in the city. The people he brought were the people from Mei Air Courtyard and the disciples from Mei Yi Courtyard. Since Chen Donghai's martial arts had been crippled, he would only be a burden if he went. Guyu followed them and watched as they solemnly captured a skinny young man. He really couldn't see how this skinny young man could be the murderer. He looked so weak that he couldn't even stand up to a gust of wind. He was simply an ordinary person who didn't know martial arts. According to the injuries they had detected, the murderer should have been a tall and burly man who was far different from the skinny young man in front of them. Could it be that Chu Li simply captured someone to be the scapegoat for the mission? Chu Li did not say much. He only ordered his men to capture the skinny young man and bring him back to the secret guardian's hall for interrogation as soon as possible. The two of them returned to the main hall of the secret guardian's hall. Chen Donghai was waiting there anxiously. Chu Li went straight into the main hall and sat on the armchair to rest. He was lazy and did not want to talk. He did not want to brush these two off. Since this case was going to be solved, of course, he had to clean it up. He did not want to leave a mess and give people an excuse to attack him. Is he really the murderer? Guyu frowned. You didn't come up with this to fool people to deal with the Emperor's mission, did you? That guy doesn't know martial arts, and his height doesn't match. Chu Li shook his head. Commander, do you know of a martial art called the bone shrinking skill? Bone shrinking skill. Guyu frowned. Chen Donghai quickly said, could it be that the murderer used the bone shrinking skill? Did you catch the murderer? Yes, Chu Li said. Commander Gu suspects that it's not the real murderer. That guy is using the bone shrinking skill now. It looks like he doesn't know martial arts because he used a secret skill. That's why he's so weak and easy to catch. If it were any other time, he would have escaped. Secret skill? Guyu frowned. He still needs a secret skill. This guy was a fierce and overbearing top-notch master. He did not need a secret skill to kill Minister Li's family easily. He looks powerful because he used a secret skill. Chu Li said faintly, actually, he's not that powerful. That's why it's so easy to catch him. You guys can investigate the rest and close this case as soon as possible. Guyu slowly nodded. A moment later, a skinny middle-aged man walked in quickly and handed Guyu a white paper before he left. Guyu opened the paper, and his face darkened after he read it. Commander, is there no result from the interrogation? Chen Donghai asked. It's good that there's no result. Guyu scoffed. This guy is a little troublesome. Chu Li smiled faintly. What's the trouble? Guyu sighed and passed it to Chen Donghai. Chen Donghai quickly read it and frowned. He's a monk disciple of the Tempest Temple. Troublesome. Chapter 11:17. P.S. Sorry for the delay. I've been writing for a few days straight. I can't take it anymore. I'll take it easy today and resume tomorrow. Chuli frowned. A monk disciple of the Tempest Temple. He shook his head. I don't think so. This is obviously a confession. Chen Donghai said impatiently. He gripped the paper as if he was holding a hot potato. The Tempest Temple and the Secret Guardians Hall were sworn enemies. They fought each other every year and fought in secret. Even if there were no deaths, there were many who were severely injured or had their martial arts crippled. The Tempest Temple was not as humble as they looked and did not have the magnanimity of a monk. The Secret Guardians Hall would have the guts to fight against other sects, but it was a headache for the Tempest Temple. Commander Gu was very wary of the Tempest Temple because he had not been able to gain any advantage from them ever since he took office. The Tempest Temple had steadily suppressed them, and the Secret Guardians Hall had turned into a defensive stance. Now, they did not dare to provoke the Tempest Temple. Chuli glanced at him and looked at Guyu. The confession might not be true. We need to ask carefully and patiently. If this person has ulterior motives, the first confession must be false. You think he has ulterior motives? Guyu frowned and looked up at him. It's not a vendetta, Chuli said. It doesn't seem like a vendetta. If it was a vendetta, they wouldn't have died so easily. Although it's satisfying to kill all 35 of them. It's too quick for a vengeful person. What's his identity, then? Guyu frowned. Chuli shook his head. We'll need the Secret Guardians Hall's interrogation experts to get to the bottom of this. He might be an enemy of the Tempest Temple. Chen Donghai nodded. That makes sense. Guyu sized Chuli up and said, Chuli, as far as I know, you're best friends with Fa Yuan from the Tempest Temple. You won't protect the Tempest Temple because of this, will you? Chuli could not help but laugh. All right then, I won't say anything else. I don't want people to suspect that I'm siding with the Tempest Temple. However, I'm guessing that this person is indeed a disciple of the Tempest Temple. Since he's a disciple of the Tempest Temple, what else is there to say? Guyu scoffed. Chen Donghai said, Chuli, you're saying that he's a traitor of the Tempest Temple? Yes, that's about right. Chuli nodded. Guyu frowned and remained silent. Chen Donghai hurriedly asked, even the Tempest Temple has a traitor? It was not as if the Secret Guardians Hall had never tried to instigate the disciples of the Tempest Temple, but none of them had succeeded. Chuli smiled. Which faction doesn't have traitors? Let's see if we can find the opponent's weakness. As long as we can find the weakness, we can betray them. You make it sound nice. Chen Donghai shook his head. We haven't been able to instigate the Tempest Temple to defect. The Secret Guardians Hall is too weak. They can't defeat the Tempest Temple. So how can we allow the disciples of the Tempest Temple to rebel? They'll definitely die if they rebel. If it's a stronger sect, it won't be difficult to incite them to rebel, Chuli said. All right then, get someone to examine it more carefully, Guyu said slowly. Chen Donghai said, I'll inform them. Chuli picked up his teacup and took a sip. He then put the teacup down and fist saluted. Since the case has been solved, it's time for me to retire. Farewell. Wait, Guyu said in a low voice. Chuli frowned at him. Guyu said, the case isn't really solved yet. Didn't you say that there's a mastermind? That's the Secret Guardians Hall's problem. Chuli said plainly, can't you do that? Chen Donghai rushed in and said, Commander, that guy is dead. Guyu's face darkened. Dead? How did he die? He couldn't endure the torture, Chen Donghai said. Be ****. Guyu slammed his teacup on the table and yelled, how could they kill him? What were they doing? Chuli coughed softly and asked, Centurion Chen, How many people were in charge of the interrogation? 3. Chun Donghai said, they're the interrogation experts in the house. Chuli frowned and pondered. Guyu scoffed. Why? You think they're suspicious? Chuli looked at him. Are they not? Let's go and take a look. Guyu scoffed. The three of them exited the hall and walked to the back, arriving at a spacious underground stone chamber. As soon as they entered the stone chamber, they were greeted with an eerie aura. There were all sorts of torture instruments with bloodstains all around. The stench of blood assaulted their nostrils, sending chills and fear down their spines. A stone pillar was erected in the stone chamber, and a person was tied to it. He was no longer breathing. The other 3 middle-aged men stared at the person with gloomy expressions. When they saw Chu Li and the others coming down, the 3 of them fist saluted. What happened? You're not new to this. How could you make such a mistake? Guyu was furious as soon as he arrived. He said in a low voice, Don't you know that a confession is useless if the person is dead? If the person was dead, the confession would be useless. The dead could not speak, so they could fabricate any kind of confession. Therefore, no one would believe it, not even the emperor. The 3 of them smiled bitterly. Commander, we don't know what happened to him. Why did he suddenly stop breathing? Did he commit suicide? Chen Donghai asked. Chu Li said, I've crippled his martial arts. It's impossible for him to commit suicide. Then what happened? Chen Donghai looked at the corpse in confusion. Chu Li's gaze wandered over the 3 middle-aged secret guardians. The 3 of them looked at him calmly. Guyu and Chen Donghai were puzzled when they saw Chu Li's gaze. Chu Li smiled. Seems like it's a coincidence. Guyu and Chen Donghai frowned. The 3 of them looked calm and did not feel guilty at all. One of the middle-aged secret guardians said, Centurion Chu, are you suspecting us? Chu Li said, I didn't expect the secret guardians' hall to be infiltrated. What do you mean, Centurion Chu? Chen Donghai quickly said, Are the 3 of them really suspicious? Don't joke around. The 3 middle-aged secret guardians had entered the secret guardians' hall when they were young, so their backgrounds were definitely clean. Chu Li said, Are they disciples of the Holy Church of Light? The 3 of them frowned and stared at him. Chen Donghai's expression changed. He took a step back and said, Disciples of the Holy Church of Light? He had a deep understanding of how terrifying the disciples of the Holy Church of Light were. They were a group of lunatics who did not care about their own lives and would easily perish together with their enemies. Chu Li looked at the square-faced, middle-aged man among the 3 and smiled. You've really hidden yourself well. I've been in the secret guardians' hall for so long, but I didn't notice. You're really amazing. I'm impressed. The square-faced middle-aged man frowned. Centurion Chu, please don't joke around. I've never offended you. Chu Li said, The dead ones are disciples of the Holy Church of Light, right? Why did the Holy Church of Light kill the minister's entire family and frame the Tempest Temple? What's your motive? Forget it, you might not know. The square-faced, middle-aged man shook his head. Centurion Chu, why are you accusing me? Chu Li said, I have no grudge against you. Why would I accuse you? However, the Holy Church of Light massacred the entire family of the imperial court's officials, not even sparing a 3-year-old child. How disappointing. The square-faced man quickly said, How strange. How did I become a disciple of the Holy Church of Light? Chu Li turned and glanced at Guyu. Investigate this person. I don't need to do the rest, right? Is he really a disciple of the Holy Church of Light? Guyu asked. Chu Li smiled. Believe it or not, it's up to you. Goodbye. Chapter 11:18. P.S. Update complete. There are only 2 updates today. More will be written tomorrow. Chu Li left immediately, but the 5 people in the stone room tensed up. Chen Donghai looked at the square-faced, middle-aged man and frowned. You're Yu Xinqing, right? Yes, Centurion Chen. The square-faced, middle-aged man gave a fist salute. Chen Donghai pondered. You're from Ju One Courtyard, right? Yes. Yu Xinqing nodded. Chen Donghai said, I remember you entered the Secret Guardians Hall a long time ago. Why, are you dissatisfied with the Secret Guardians Hall? Centurion Chen believes Centurion Chu's words and thinks that I'm a disciple of the Holy Church of Light? Yes. Chen Donghai nodded. Although he has a grudge against me, he wouldn't lie about this. You should be a disciple of the Holy Church of Light, but I'm curious how you managed to hide it until now. Were you a disciple from the beginning, or did you join the Holy Church of Light later? Guyu frowned at Chen Donghai. Centurion Chen, this matter isn't confirmed yet, right? Commander, I believe Chu Li. Centurion Chen, you'd rather believe an outsider who has a grudge against the Secret Guardians Hall than your own people? Yu Xinqing quickly asked. Yes. Chen Donghai nodded. I trust Chu Li more than you. Then I have nothing to say. Yu Xinqing sighed. I can't prove my innocence. Chen Donghai said, then you're a disciple of the Holy Church of Light. Centurion Chen. Guyu frowned. Don't be so sure. Yu Xinqing, you're not allowed to leave the stone room. The house will naturally give you an explanation. If you're really innocent, I'll personally seek justice for you. From Chu Li. Yes, Commander. Yu Xinqing gave a fist salute. Thank you, Commander. Guyu waved his hand and walked out of the stone room with Chen Donghai. Do you really believe Chu Li? Guyu frowned. Both of them went to the main hall and ordered the stone room to be surrounded, trapping Yu Xinqing inside. Chen Donghai said, Commander, Chu Li is an arrogant person. He won't lie like this. It seems that the Holy Church of Light has infiltrated the Secret Guardians Hall. We need to investigate. We can't. Guyu shook his head. Our morale will fall if we investigate. What if something like this happens again? Chen Donghai frowned and said, Moreover, I think the reason why they wanted to kill Minister Li's family is very important, and we should find out. How can we investigate if he's dead? Guyu said, Let's investigate the aftershocks first. 2 days later, in the evening, the setting sun dyed the garden red. Chu Li sat in the gazebo. Opposite of the stone table was F.A. Yuan. F.A. Yuan was dressed in a gray monk's robe. His head was bald, and his body was tall and straight. His eyes were bright and full of expression. He placed his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha. Brother Chu, why did you summon me here? Chu Li sent someone to the Mercy Temple to inform them that he wanted to meet F.A. Yuan. F.A. Yuan quickly received the news and rushed over. Minister Li's family extermination case. F.A. Yuan, you know about it, right? Chu Li asked, why was his family exterminated? Our temple is investigating this matter. F.A. Yuan revealed a solemn expression and said slowly, that disciple did not seem to have any enmity with Minister Li. As for why he killed Minister Li's entire family, we still haven't figured it out, but it can't be without reason. He was instigated by the Holy Church of Light. Chu Li shook his head and said he probably has relatives who are being held hostage by the Holy Church of Light. Yes, this has been investigated. F.A. Yuan said in a low voice, his daughter was kidnapped by the Holy Church of Light. Chu Li frowned. He didn't ask you for help? No. F.A. Yuan shook his head. Maybe he felt that there was no way to save her. After all, she had been kidnapped to the Li dynasty, and it was true that he couldn't save her. The Holy Church of Light does not have the magnanimity of a major sect. It's disappointing. Chu Li's face darkened, and he slowly nodded. When he captured that person, He did not look into his thoughts. He only knew that he was originally a disciple of the Tempest Temple and later joined the Holy Church of Light. As for why he betrayed the Tempest Temple, he did not investigate further. No matter the reason, he deserved to die after killing so many people, especially women and children. Now, it seemed that this matter was not so simple. In Brother Chu's opinion, why did they kill Minister Li's family? Fa Yuan asked. Chu Li pondered. Such a cruel act. I'm afraid it's to punish traitors. Minister Li is probably a disciple of the Holy Church of Light. Just thinking about it gives me chills. Just how many disciples of the Holy Church of Light are there in the Ji dynasty? Fa Yuan said. The Holy Church of Light is currently in a fierce battle with the Qiu dynasty. How would they have the energy to deal with the Ji dynasty? Chu Li sighed. I'm afraid that Minister Li's betrayal has involved the Qiu dynasty. This matter will probably become a mystery. Everyone is dead, and there's still a disciple of the Holy Church of Light in the Secret Guardians' Hall. I'm afraid they don't know much. Brother Chu, you're not a Secret Guardian now, but you still work for the Secret Guardians' Hall? Fa Yuan asked. Chu Li shook his head. I went to help at the last minute, and the Tempest Temple was almost made a scapegoat. Fa Yuan sighed. My temple and the Secret Guardians' Hall have been fighting in the dark for a long time. Now that king and his dead, Brother Chu, you can finally stay in the imperial residence without worry. Chu Li looked at him and smiled. Fa Yuan, what do you mean by that? Fa Yuan smiled and pressed his palms together. Brother Chu, you're the one who killed Kingen, right? What a joke. Chu Li could not help but laugh. You're really daring. If I killed King, and would the emperor spare me? He suspected me too, and summoned me to the imperial house to interrogate me. Fa Yuan said, even if you didn't do it yourself, you must have ordered someone to do it, right? From what I know, Brother Chu, you're friends with Du Feng. Chu Li waved his hand. I've never met Du Feng, or else the winner would have been decided long ago. Fa Yuan shook his head and smiled. Brother Chu, why hide it from me? You're close to Snow Lunar Pavilion, and Du Feng is also friends with Snow Lunar Pavilion. How could Snow Lunar Pavilion not meet the two of you? It's just that no one saw it. Chu Li said impatiently, Fa Yuan, your words are getting more and more unreliable. You're just making wild guesses, and none of them are reliable. I've never met Du Feng. This is definitely not a lie. Even if you haven't met him, you've been friends for a long time. Moreover, with Snow Lunar Pavilion acting as a bridge, you'll be able to talk. Fa Yuan smiled. Then send a message to Du Feng through Snow Lunar Pavilion and ask him to help kill King, and Chu Li sighed. Do you think Du Feng will agree? To go against an enlightened master, isn't that suicide? Didn't Du Feng escape? Fa Yuan smiled. That means he can go against an enlightened master. Why are you saying this? Chu Li smiled. This is not a small matter. If it's proven that it's me, my life will be in danger. Don't tell me that the Tempest Temple hates me and wants to spread this rumor. I didn't spread it, Fa Yuan said. Actually, it's not difficult to find out. You just have to ask Snow Lunar Pavilion. Chu Li's face darkened. Fa Yuan, you want to go against Snow Lunar Pavilion? I'm just curious and want to find out Du Feng's whereabouts. Fa Yuan smiled. Among all the factions, Snow Lunar Pavilion is the closest to Du Feng. I just don't know why the Emperor hasn't made a move against Snow Lunar Pavilion. Chapter 11:19. Fa Yuan shook his head. Brother Chu, I don't think you can hide your relationship with Du Feng from the Emperor. If we can see it, how can he not? What is the Tempest Temple trying to do? Chu Li frowned. Fa Yuan smiled. Although we feel sorry for King An's death, we have no intention of avenging him. Death is death. However, our temple is very interested in this Du Feng. We want to know more about him. This person is too mysterious. Chu Li said he is no longer in the Ji dynasty, or we would have found him long ago. Looks like Brother Chu is really related to Du Feng. Fa Yuan smiled. Chu Li said impatiently, that is obvious. If I were him, I would escape the Ji dynasty too. No matter how powerful the emperor is, he can't reach the Li dynasty, Qiu dynasty, Fu dynasty, and Zheng dynasty. But the emperor can destroy Snow Lunar Pavilion, Fa Yuan said. If that's the case, Du Feng will definitely come back for revenge. Du Feng has a close relationship with Snow Lunar Pavilion. This is something everyone knows. Chu Li frowned. Fa Yuan said, but the strange thing is the emperor hasn't touched Snow Lunar Pavilion. But that doesn't mean the other sects won't take action and show goodwill to the imperial family. Chu Li shook his head slowly. If Snow Lunar Pavilion was in trouble, Li Hanyan would have sent a message. However, this was indeed dangerous and getting more dangerous. Du Feng's relationship with Snow Lunar Pavilion was well known. Snow Lunar Pavilion would be a major suspect if the emperor was after Du Feng. There were no fools in this world. Everyone was smart, seeing that Snow Lunar Pavilion was safe and the imperial court did not make a move. They just watched quietly. However, as time passed, there would inevitably be opportunists who would test the waters and go against Snow Lunar Pavilion. Although he had set up a formation outside Snow Lunar Pavilion to prevent them from coming out, accidents were inevitable. It would not let his wishful thinking succeed. Forget it. I know Du Feng's background. He is a disciple of the heavenly demonic sect. He is the sworn enemy of the Tempest Temple. Chu Li said, the heavenly demonic sect. Fa Yuan was shocked. Chu Li said, so he must have escaped to the Fu dynasty. That's impossible. Fa Yuan pondered. The disciples of the heavenly demonic sect are good at disguising themselves, but their martial arts skills are ordinary. Du Feng's knife technique is top-notch, and his cultivation level is top-notch. This doesn't match the characteristics of the disciples of the heavenly demonic sect. Chu Li smiled and said, he's a genius in martial arts. He can learn any martial art in one go. Moreover, he can change his appearance, so it's very easy for him to secretly learn martial arts. That's true. Fa Yuan sighed. The martial arts of the heavenly demonic sect are strange and mysterious. What's even more fatal is that after cultivating the heavenly demonic power, it will affect one's temperament and make one evil and cruel. In the end, it will become a great disaster. Chu Li asked, can you deal with heavenly demonic sect then? Fa Yuan was not one to speak without thinking, but there was nothing wrong with the fact that he had cultivated the heavenly demonic power. It was just that when he was pretending to be Zhao De, he would inevitably feel that he was unable to act out his role. He was already on his guard, but other than that, there was nothing unusual. Could it be caused by his Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture? Fa Yuan said, they are in the Fu dynasty. They are powerless. If you really hate him, why don't you go over? The Fu dynasty is the world of Taoism. It'll be very troublesome for Buddhist disciples to enter. Fa Yuan shook his head. Chu Li smiled and said, I see that there are very few Buddhist disciples in the Fu dynasty, and they are all scattered around. Is it because they were defeated by Taoism? Fa Yuan smiled bitterly. Chu Li was surprised. Is that true? Fa Yuan sighed and said, back then, there was a war between Buddhism and Taoism in the Fu dynasty. In the end, Taoism won, and the Buddhism was chased out of the Fu dynasty. They could only set up temples in the four directions and could not step into the Fu dynasty's territory. Even now, you can't go in? Everyone has the right to punish them. Hee hee. Interesting. Chuli shook his head and laughed. As the two were talking, Su Ru hurried over. She was dressed in an apricot gown, and her beautiful face was solemn. She approached Chu Li and said, "Chief, I have confidential news." As she spoke, she glanced at Fa Yuan. Chu Li said, "Say it. Fa Yuan is not a person who speaks without thinking." "Senior Sister Su from Snow Lunar Pavilion is dead," Su Ru said. Chu Li was stunned, and his face darkened. "Don't you have spirit pills with you?" The important disciples of Snow Lunar Pavilion all had the spirit blessing pill. Even if they died, it would not matter. As long as they consumed the spirit blessing pill in time, they would be able to come back to life. A master like Shu Qingdai should not have been killed. Shu Qingdai's beautiful face appeared in his mind. He thought about her sudden death, and that they would be separated from each other forever. It was really hard to accept. Su Ru said coldly, "She died with her head hanging high. Spirit pills are useless." Chu Li asked, "Who did it?" "I don't know." Su Ru sighed and said, "She was ambushed." Chu Li said in a low voice, "Didn't you forbid them from leaving the valley?" "They can't stay here forever. There are some things that require them to leave the valley," Su Ru said. Chu Li said slowly, "I'll go over immediately." He turned to look at Fa Yuan and sized him up. Fa Yuan quickly waved his hand and said, "Brother Chu, you won't suspect us, right? Our temple did not do anything." "Not you," Chu Li said coldly. "There are not many masters who can kill Miss Shu." Shu Qingdai was also a grandmaster now. That was why she dared to come out. His anger surged up like a fountain and kept rushing to the top of his head. He could not suppress it no matter what. Fa Yuan said, "It can't be our temple. I'll go back to the temple and help investigate." Chu Li's face was stiff as he gave a fist salute. Fa Yuan tactfully said goodbye and left. He glided over the top of the wall and disappeared without a trace. Chu Li and Su Ru arrived at Tianshu Courtyard. Xiao Shi and Xiao Qi were there. There was also Shen Yinghu, who he had not seen for a long time. The atmosphere in Tianshu Courtyard was heavy. The ladies did not speak. Seeing him enter, Xiao Shi said, "Chu Li, what should we do?" Chu Li said, "I'll find the murderer and avenge Miss Shu." Shen Yinghu was dressed in a green tunic. She sat quietly by the stone table. Her expression was solemn. Her eyebrows were shrouded in melancholy, but her figure was still enchanting and graceful. Chu Li gave a fist salute and said, "Senior, please stay here and help me protect the second lady. Both of us will go back. Xiao Qi and Xiao Ru, don't go back. We don't want our identities to be exposed." Shen Yinghu sighed and said, "That girl Qingdai is really unlucky. She failed miserably in such an easy task." Shu Qingdai was an outstanding talent among the second-generation disciples. She was already a grandmaster at a young age. She had a bright future ahead of her. She would become the pavilion leader of Snow Lunar Pavilion in the future. No one would have thought that she would die so early. Xiao Qi said, "Chu Li, let us know if there's any news." Chu Li nodded. He reached out and grabbed Shen Yinghu's wrist through her tunic. They disappeared in a flash. The two of them appeared in Shen Yinghu's waterside pavilion. Shen Yinghu opened the door and walked out of the upper corridor. Chu Li followed closely behind. His omniscient mirror had already been activated. Soon, he found Shu Qingdai's corpse. Her beautiful face was pale and lifeless. Even with her eyes closed, he could still see the disbelief on her face. Seeing the circle of stitches on her snow-white neck, Chu Li's killing intent boiled, and he could not control it. Shining-Hu was walking in front. She felt the murderous intent and turned her head to look at him. Chu understood what she meant. He nodded and said, "I will calm down." As the saying goes, anger should not be used. Anger would only ruin things. It would affect one's mind and judgment, making it easier for one to be deceived. He would not underestimate anyone. This murderer must be caught, but he could not be impatient. He did not want to fall into a trap instead. Maybe this was a trap in itself. He had to be careful. These thoughts turned in his mind, but were quickly extinguished. He forced himself to calm down. "Senior Shin, you go and see the pavilion leader and the others." "I will go and see Miss Shu," Chu said. Chapter 11:20. P.S. Update complete. I'm really sorry. Chu nodded slowly and glided up to a loft on the stone wall. He saw the coffin in the middle of the first floor. The temperature in the loft was very low, and there were huge ice blocks all around. Shu Qingdai lay quietly in the coffin as if she had fallen asleep. Chu looked at her face. He felt guilty and regretful, heavy and angry. After a long time, he collected his thoughts and took a deep breath to cheer himself up. The only thing he could do was to take revenge and kill her murderer. He used the omniscient mirror to see through Shu Qingjia's body. He wanted to know what kind of martial arts was used to kill her and find the murderer to avenge her. Unfortunately, other than the knife marks on her body, there were no other external injuries. She did not even have any internal injuries. It was obvious that she was killed in one strike. Chu frowned and pondered. It was obvious that the opponent's martial arts was far better than hers, or she was caught off guard. She did not expect the opponent to kill her or someone close to her. Footsteps were heard. Chu did not turn his head, but the omniscient mirror had already seen the person approaching. Li Hanyan was dressed in a light green gown. She had a slender figure and a face as white as jade. She stepped into the loft and stood behind Chu Li. "Brother Chu," Chu Li turned to look at her and nodded. Li Hanyan wrung her slender hands and lowered her head. "Brother Chu, it's my fault. I couldn't protect Sister Su." Chu Li turned to look at her. Li Hanyan said, "I wanted to go with her, but Sister Su said that the two of us would attract too much attention. So she left the valley by herself. I couldn't insist on going with her. In the end, Chu Li said, 'What does she want?' 'To send a letter.' Li Hanyan said, 'It's a letter written by the pavilion leader herself.' 'To whom?' Chu Li asked. Li Hanyan shook her head. 'Only Sister Su knows.' Chu Li nodded. 'Where did you find Miss Su?' 'In a forest 20 miles away.' Li Hanyan said. 'Who found her?' Chu Li frowned. Li Hanyan said, 'It was me.' Chu Li stared at her. Li Hanyan lowered her head in embarrassment. 'I wanted to go out and take a look.' She knew that the disciples of the Snow Lunar Pavilion were holed up because Du Feng had killed King An. The emperor had issued an order to hunt down and kill Du Feng. Since the Snow Lunar Pavilion and Du Feng were involved, they would become public enemies, so it was best for them not to go out. However, deep in her bones, she had an urge to pursue excitement and adventure. She sneaked out without telling her seniors, but she did not expect to find Shu Qingjia's corpse by accident. Chu Li said, "Bring me there to have a look." "Yes." Li Hanyan quickly nodded. The two of them exited the valley of the Snow Lunar Pavilion and entered a forest. It was already early winter, but the forest was still lush and green. Chu Li furrowed his brows and scanned his surroundings. He noticed that there were more than 20 martial arts masters hiding in the dark. They were all staring at the ravine from afar. Although they could not enter due to the protection of the formation, they did not give up. Every one of them was filled with murderous intent and wanted to ambush the disciples of the Snow Lunar Pavilion. Chu Li's face was gloomy. He glided onto the treetop. His eyes were like lightning. He shouted in a deep voice, "Anyone who enters within 100 feet of the Snow Lunar Pavilion will be killed without mercy." He had been suppressing his raging anger. He wanted to find someone to teach him a lesson. Now that he saw more than 20 martial arts masters secretly staring at the Snow Lunar Pavilion, he was even more furious. He had a strong urge to cripple these people. "Hey!" A few cold snorts came from the forest. Chu Li swept his gaze over and said coldly, "You can try." "Then let's try." A young man glided out and appeared in front of Chu Li. "Who are you?" Chu Li said coldly, "Chu Li, Dufeng of the South and Chu Li of the North." "Ha! I've heard of your name for a long time." The young man sneered disapprovingly. "But what do you have to do with the Snow Lunar Pavilion? Why are you working so hard for them? Why did you come to the Snow Lunar Pavilion?" Chu Li scoffed. "Is it to find out Dufeng's whereabouts? There's no need to go to the Snow Lunar Pavilion. Dufeng has already escaped from the Ji dynasty and fled to the Fu dynasty. Even if you flip the Snow Lunar Pavilion upside down, you won't be able to find Dufeng." "Really?" The young man was stunned. Chu Li said, "You have one more step, and you'll be within 100 feet. Chu Li, although you're famous, we're not to be trifled with. I'm going to step on you." As he said that, he glided 3 steps forward. He had already stepped into the 100 feet dividing line and looked at Chu Li proudly. Chu Li swung his arm. Suddenly, a chi sound was heard. The flying blade hit the young man. The young man flew out and crashed into a pine tree. He was motionless. The flying blade pinned him to the tree like a nail. He immediately fainted. Chu Li glanced at the rest of the people, who were hiding, and sneered. "If you're not convinced, come out. I want to see who dares to behave atrociously in the Snow Lunar Pavilion." His move shocked everyone. The young man who came out earlier was a genius. He was already a grandmaster at such a young age. His cultivation level was profound and not weaker than the rest of them. Yet he could not even withstand one move from Chu Li. They were shocked and thought that they would only be humiliating themselves if they came out. Chu Li scoffed coldly and glided forward with Li Hanyan. Li Hanyan praised, "This is how we should deal with them. These people are too despicable. They're like hungry wolves that can pounce on us at any time. Yet we can't do anything to them. We have to be on guard." Chu Li said, "Next time, we'll just kill them directly. They hide far away. They run away as soon as I chase after them." Li Hanyan said helplessly, "Those who come here are all top-notch in light body technique. Once they start running, I can't catch up to them. How annoying." Chu Li frowned and nodded. The two of them finally arrived at an empty spot in the forest. Chu Li saw the bloodstains on the withered grass and a few trees that were also stained with blood. He could tell that Shu Qingdai had died a horrible death. Fresh blood gushed out, and it made him even angrier. His killing intent soared. Under the observation of the omniscient mirror, everything on the ground was clearly visible. Li Hanyan stood at the side and looked at him in confusion. Chu Li scanned the surroundings and shook his head in disappointment. He could not find any trace of the murderer. It was as if this person had never appeared. Moreover, he did it cleanly and left no traces. Li Hanyan asked softly, "Big Brother Chu, can you find the murderer?" Chu Li shook his head. "He should be lying in ambush here and killed Miss Shu with a single slash. So where should he be hiding?" He looked around and finally stopped on a hollow tree. He glided into the hollow tree and scanned every inch of the tree with his electric gaze. Finally, he found a strand of hair, and suddenly a cold smile appeared on his face. With this strand of hair, he would be able to find the owner of the hair. Then he would know whether Shu Qingdai was killed or not. Let's go. Chu Li waved his hand. Li Hanyan walked over in confusion. Chu Li grabbed her wrist and disappeared in a flash. The next moment, he appeared in a forest. A middle-aged man was sitting cross-legged opposite of him. He was eating his rations. When he saw the two of them, he immediately grabbed his long knife. "Who are you?" Chu Li asked in a deep voice. He squinted his eyes, and a sharp glint flashed in his eyes. He noticed the force of the heavenly demonic energy. The middle-aged man in front of him was a disciple of the heavenly demonic sect. "Did you kill Shu Qingdai?" Chu Li continued to ask. "Who is Shu Qingdai?" The middle-aged man frowned and was on guard. Chu Li said coldly, "Why did you kill Shu Qingdai?" Chapter 11:21. P.S. Everyone is reacting even later because they need to adjust their state and relax for the next 2 days. They will update earlier tomorrow. The update time is set at 12 a.m. to 6 p.m. Chu Li narrowed his eyes and sneered. "Did you disguise as me to kill them?" "Who are you?" the middle-aged man asked coldly. Chu Li answered. "Chu Li," the middle-aged man sneered. "I don't know you. How can I disguise as you?" "Then who did you disguise as?" Chu Li scoffed. The middle-aged man said, "All right, there's no harm in telling you. I disguised as Du Feng." "Why?" Chu Li asked coldly. "Snow Lunar Pavilion and Heavenly Demonic Sect have nothing to do with each other, right? Even if Du Feng was a disciple of Heavenly Demonic Sect, Snow Lunar Pavilion only did Du Feng a favor. Why would Heavenly Demonic Sect want to kill a disciple of Snow Lunar Pavilion?" The middle-aged man frowned at Chu Li. Li Hanyan felt that her brain was not enough. She heard it clearly but could not understand it. Her mind was a mess. Chu Li said, "I know Du Feng's identity. He was a disciple of Heavenly Demonic Sect. He killed King and escaped back to Heavenly Demonic Sect. Snow Lunar Pavilion did not harm Du Feng. Why would Heavenly Demonic Sect want to deal with Snow Lunar Pavilion?" The middle-aged man remained silent. Chu Li frowned. Is Heavenly Demonic Sect going to repay kindness with enmity? There's no other way. The middle-aged man said, "I was ordered to do so." "Whose order?" Chu Li sneered. "Who has a grudge against Du Feng?" The sect leader personally gave the order. The middle-aged man said helplessly, "There's no harm in telling you. It's not just me. Everyone in Heavenly Demonic Sect received the order to destroy Snow Lunar Pavilion." Chu Li was puzzled. "Why?" "To help Du Feng." The middle-aged man said, "Du Feng needs to train his state of mind. If he knew that Snow Lunar Pavilion was destroyed, his heavenly demonic power will improve under the strong stimulation." Chu Li was startled. Then he was furious. "You killed a disciple of Snow Lunar Pavilion for Du Feng's martial arts." "Yes, we were ordered to destroy Snow Lunar Pavilion." The middle-aged man said calmly, "I originally disguised myself as Du Feng and wanted to sneak into the Snow Lunar Pavilion. I didn't expect that woman to recognize me, so I had no choice but to kill her." He felt that since Chu Li knew about it, he would definitely not let him go. He was definitely going to die, so he might as well just tell him everything so that he wouldn't have to suffer any more torture. Furthermore, if Chu Li knew about it, he would definitely seek revenge. He would definitely die in the hands of the sect leader, which would be considered as avenging him. Good, good. Chu Li was so angry that he laughed. "You want to destroy the entire Snow Lunar Pavilion. Huh." His body suddenly exuded a dense, murderous aura. Li Hanyan felt a chill run down her spine as if she had fallen into an ice house. The middle-aged man felt the same way. He knew that Chu Li was filled with killing intent and was about to make a move. He stared into Chu Li's eyes and said in a low voice, "Chu Li, since you know about Heavenly Demonic Sect, you should know that once you become Heavenly Demonic Sect's enemy, we'll fight to the death and destroy you." "What, a fight to the death?" Chu Li sneered. A dim sword light floated up from his waist. The modesty sword slashed across the middle-aged man's neck and returned to its sheath. Chu Li slammed his palm on top of the middle-aged man's chest and activated the Heavenly Demonic Spirit Devouring technique. Bang! The middle-aged man fell on his back. His head was separated from his body, but not a single drop of blood came out. Li Hanyan said hatefully, "He got off lightly." Chu Li took a deep breath and said, "Go back first and tell the pavilion leader about this." "Big Brother Chu, which sect is Heavenly Demonic Sect?" Li Hanyan held his large hand and asked in confusion, "I don't think I've heard of this sect." "It's a sect from the Fu dynasty." Chu Li frowned and said, "Heavenly Demonic Sect can change your appearance. You must be careful and keep your eyes open. Don't be deceived by the people around you. I'm a grandmaster. I won't be assassinated so easily." Li Hanyan laughed. Chu Li scoffed. "Miss Su, aren't you a grandmaster? Didn't you get killed? All the same?" When he thought of this, the murderous intent in his heart surged again. Although the murderer had been killed, the real murderer who ordered the murder was still at large. It was Fu Qingya. He had cultivated his heavenly demonic power to the 9th level, which was similar to Fu Qingya's, but he might not be able to defeat Fu Qingya. Judging from the range of the heavenly demonic field, he was still inferior. However, he must take revenge. Heavenly Demonic Sect was stronger than Snow Lunar Pavilion, and the heavenly demonic power was hard to defend against. Snow Lunar Pavilion would not be able to defend against it. Sigh. Senior Sister Su died. Such an unjust death. Li Hanyan sighed. Chu Li said, "You go back first. I'll avenge Miss Su." "You're going to the Fu dynasty to look for Heavenly Demonic Sect." Li Hanyan frowned. Chu Li nodded slowly. "I have to avenge her." Li Hanyan asked, "Big Brother Chu, are you going to disguise yourself as Du Feng?" "I'll go with my original appearance." Chu Li scoffed. He did not hide his original identity. Snow Lunar Pavilion was under great pressure now. Not only Heavenly Demonic Sect, but other sects were also eyeing them covetously and could pounce on them at any time. By revealing his identity, he was clearly protecting Snow Lunar Pavilion so that the people of the martial arts world would have some reservations. "I'll go with you," Li Hanyan said hurriedly. "I heard that the martial arts world of the Fu dynasty is far more powerful than the Ji dynasty. They have many masters, 10 or even 100 times more than us. I wonder if it's true." Chu Li said, "The Fu dynasty has always been 10 times bigger than the Ji dynasty. It's only natural that they have more masters." "Big Brother Chu, do you think I'm a burden?" Li Hanyan asked. Chu Li said calmly, "The Fu dynasty is not the Ji dynasty. Heavenly Demonic Sect is powerful, and I might not be able to be distracted. It's better if you don't go." "Yes." Li Hanyan was reluctant, but there was nothing she could do. She could only blame her martial arts for being too weak. Chu Li understood her thoughts and patted her shoulder. "Don't rush to cultivate. It'll be dangerous if you're too greedy." Li Hanyan was a genius in martial arts. Although her progress was not as fast as Chu Li's, with the help of the concentration talisman, her cultivation progressed by leaps and bounds. "Yes," Li Hanyan said weakly. Chu Li suddenly disappeared. Li Hanyan sighed and walked back unhappily. She stopped after a few steps and picked up the middle-aged man's corpse. With the head in one hand and the body in the other, she glided away and soon entered the dense forest. Suddenly, she stopped and turned to look at her surroundings. She scoffed. Sneaky and cowardly bandits. The people hiding in the dark were furious. Li had put them in their place. They were already filled with rage because they were not as skilled as Li Hanyan. They had no choice but to bear with the situation. However, this little girl was so presumptuous that they could not tolerate it. Presumptuous. A middle-aged man with wretched features glided down from the treetop and landed not far from her. He said in a low voice, "Do you think we won't dare to kill you? Do you have the guts?" Li Hanyan gave him a sidelong glance. "Aren't you afraid that Big Brother Chu will punish you? Li is strong, but we're not to be trifled with." The wretched man said proudly, "Tell me your name." Li Hanyan scoffed. "I'm Zhao Chuan from the Azure Mountain." The wretched man scoffed. He stared greedily at Li Hanyan and her bulging breasts. Li Hanyan's figure was slender and graceful, but curvaceous. She had a slim chest and a slim waist. Her figure was scorching hot. "The Azure Mountain. I've never heard of it." Li Hanyan pouted and said, "All right, what are you trying to do?" Zhao Chuan scoffed. "Tell me where Du Feng is hiding." Didn't Big Brother Chu say that Du Feng has returned to the Fu Dynasty's heavenly demonic sect? If you have the guts, go to the Fu Dynasty's heavenly demonic sect to look for him. Li Hanyan scoffed. "Don't look for Snow Lunar Pavilion." That you're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.